Memiliki lebih dari 17.000 pulau, Indonesia menyimpan harta karun luar biasa yang tak dimiliki oleh bangsa lain. Kaya dengan adat istiadat, agama, kesenian, dan bahasa lokal, membuat negeri ini memiliki identitas dan jati diri yang teramat kuat. Dalam kekayaan budayanya, tersimpan nilai-nilai kearifan lokal yang patut dijaga dan diwariskan. Keragaman budaya ini pun sepadan pula dengan sumber daya alamnya yang amat melimpah. Menduduki peringkat pertama dunia dalam biodiversitas darat dan laut, membuat Indonesia seakan tak pernah habis memberikan manfaat pada semua aspek kehidupan bumi, khususnya manusia. Idealnya, kekayaan tersebut bisa dimanfaatkan, salah satunya menjadi sumber informasi dan pengetahuan bagi bangsa dan masyarakat. Sayangnya, konten yang berisi kekayaan sumber daya dan kearifan lokal ini masih terasa kurang. Kalaupun ada, ia tidak terverifikasi secara ilmiah dan keberadaannya sulit ditelusuri. Pun, pengetahuan masyarakat lokal yang telah mengakar dan bernilai baik masih belum dimanfaatkan secara maksimal oleh pembuat kebijakan. Sebagai bagian dari kekayaan Indonesia, kearifan lokal diibaratkan pegangan hidup yang mencakup berbagai bidang seperti sosial ekonomi, arsitektur, kesehatan, tata lingkungan, dan sebagainya. Ia harus dipelihara dan dilestarikan hingga kapanpun. Karena pada era digital sekarang ini, sangat mudah menyampaikan ilmu dan informasi. Namun, jauh lebih mudah menyampaikan kabar palsu dan ilmu yang tak berdasar. Salah satu solusi yang bisa kita lakukan adalah menjadikan sumber daya dan kearifan lokal Indonesia ini sebagai produk informasi yang terverifikasi dan terakses, yang kelak akan menjadi penunjang dalam meningkatkan literasi masyarakat, yang pada akhirnya turut andil dalam pengembangan ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi di Indonesia. LIPI, sebagai pemegang otoritas keilmuan dalam berbagai aspek, memiliki peran sebagai pelopor pengelolaan informasi ilmu pengetahuan dan budaya kearifan lokal. Hal ini sejalan dengan salah satu misi LIPI, yakni meningkatkan kualitas sumber daya manusia melalui aktivitas ilmiah yang bertujuan untuk meningkatkan posisi dan citra Indonesia di komunitas global dalam bidang ilmu pengetahuan. Tahun 2019 adalah tahun yang menjadi tonggak berdirinya satuan kerja penting di LIPI. Banyak persoalan yang perlu dirampungkan, utamanya terkait dengan penyediaan informasi iptek dan kearifan lokal Indonesia. Oleh karenanya, diperlukan solusi berupa pembentukan satuan kerja yang melakukan kegiatan akuisisi dan pengemasan informasi yang nantinya akan mengemas dan mengkomunikasikan pengetahuan lokal menjadi sebuah konten cemerlang yang akan turut andil dalam melestarikan budaya serta mencerdaskan kehidupan bangsa. Penggabungan dua satuan kerja ini lahir dari semangat kami dalam mengangkat segala sumber daya dan kearifan lokal nasional yang kelak akan menjadi acuan dan penggerak dalam mencerdaskan kehidupan bangsa. Melalui kegiatan akuisisi dan menjadikannya produk informasi yang terverifikasi dan terakses, maka tingkat literasi ilmu pengetahuan masyarakat akan semakin tinggi, serta dapat digunakan sebagai acuan kebijakan pemerintah dalam mengambil keputusan. Dengan peta bisnis yang terstruktur, efektif, dan efisien, diharapkan dapat menghasilkan kinerja yang sesuai dengan tujuan dari penggabungan dua satuan kerja yang telah ada dan menciptakan keluaran yang bermanfaat untuk kemajuan bangsa. Partisipasi masyarakat memegang porsi yang paling besar. Mereka adalah sang pemilik utama pengetahuan lokal. Mereka dilibatkan sebagai subjek atau pelaku yang diajak bertanggung jawab terhadap konten yang dikerjakan. Hal tersebut menggambarkan bahwa sumber daya dan kearifan lokal adalah milik bersama dari dan untuk bangsa Indonesia.
Selamat datang, selamat pagi kami ucapkan kepada Kepala LIPI, Pak Handoko. Hello again, Alex and also Ramesh. How are you?
Selamat pagi, terima kasih Mbak Sarwenda. Sudah bisa didengar ya?
Good morning.
Iya Pak, iya Pak. And
Masih
Ramesh,
jauh Pak Handoko,
how's everything?
kurang dekat.
Morning.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming, and we always have you in our annual program, so it's our pleasure. Thank you so much. Selamat pagi, teman-teman di LIPI Press, juga Ibu Bapak peserta webinar pada hari ini. Sekarang sudah menginjak pukul 8, bagaimana Mbak Prapti? Apakah kita mulai?
Silakan Mbak Sarwenda.
Baik, sebelum saya memulai, izinkan saya untuk mengawalinya dengan sebuah pantun terlebih dahulu. Pulang petang membawa ikan, dimakan sepiring, nikmat sekali. Selamat datang kami ucapkan, moga teriring restu ilahi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Selamat pagi dan selamat datang kami ucapkan kepada Ibu dan Bapak peserta LIPI Springer Publishing Forum 2020 yang terselenggara secara virtual melalui Zoom meeting pada hari ini, Rabu 18 November 2020. It is an honor to me to inform you that among us here, we have the Honorable our publishing partner from Springer, Ms. Alex Westcott Campbell, Mr. Ramesh Bramnand, and Ms. Sarah Crowley-Vigneault. Yang terhormat Kepala Lembaga Ilmu Pengetahuan Indonesia, Dr. Laksana Trihandoko. Yang kami hormati Ibu Atikah Nur Alami selaku penulis dan juga editor salah satu buku hasil kerjasama penerbitan antara LIPI dan Springer. Yang kami hormati perwakilan peneliti beserta staf dari berbagai kementerian dan juga instansi, serta seluruh tamu undangan hadirin yang berbahagia. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Sarwenda Puspita Dewi, and I will be the master of ceremony for this event. Ladies and gentlemen, as a leading institute on science and technology, LIPI publications have become a main reference for its stakeholders. Furthermore, the recognition of LIPI publication in global region is presented by LIPI Press as a representative of LIPI in the field of national scientific publication. Co-publishing agreement between LIPI Press and Springer in 2016 became the first step to globalize the books of LIPI. 5 books and 7 books of LIPI Press were ready to be co-published in 2016 and in 2019. Dan pada saat ini telah terhimpun sejumlah 12 buku yang dikerjasamakan melalui skema kerjasama penerbitan antara LIPI Press dan Springer. Melalui forum ini, selain didapatkan pengetahuan dan peluang kerjasama melalui skema penerbitan buku antara LIPI dan Springer, diharapkan motivasi peneliti dan seluruh pihak terkait untuk menghasilkan karya buku ilmiah juga dapat lebih ditingkatkan. Forum ini, Ibu dan Bapak, LIPI and Springer Publishing Forum 2020 diselenggarakan oleh LIPI Press dengan dukungan penuh dari LIPI dan juga Springer. Oleh sebab itu, terima kasih dan apresiasi kami persembahkan untuk LIPI, Springer, dan juga Anda semua peserta webinar pada hari ini. Dengan memohon berkah ilahi dan kelancaran acara pada hari ini, maka marilah kita berdoa menurut agama dan kepercayaan masing-masing. Berdoa dimulai. Selesai. Ibu dan Bapak yang kami hormati, sebelum masuk acara berikutnya, saya sampaikan tata tertib selama kegiatan berlangsung. 1. Ruang obrolan, mikrofon, dan berbagi layar peserta dimatikan demi keamanan. Anotasi layar juga hanya bisa dilakukan oleh pemateri. 2. Sesi presentasi dan diskusi akan dipandu oleh Saudari Noviastuti Putri Indrasari. 3. Peserta yang hendak bertanya dapat menuliskan pertanyaan melalui kolom Q&A. 4. Sertifikat elektronik akan dikirim via surel maksimal 3 hari setelah acara hanya kepada peserta yang mengisi umpan balik. 5. Akses materi dan umpan balik ditutup 1 hari setelah kelas. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite the Director of LIPI, Dr. Laksana Trihandoko, to deliver the welcoming speech and officially open the forum. Pak Handoko, you might take the floor.
Oke, terima kasih Mbak Sarwenda. Bapak Ibu sekalian, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Waalaikumsalam
wabarakatuh.
warahmatullahi
Selamat
Kamera
pagi,
masih jauh, Pak.
Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Salam sehat. Very good morning for everyone. So the Honorable, the team from Springer, we have Alex Westcott here, Ramesh Premnath, and also Sarah Crowley. And sorry if I cannot mention anyone else, if there are anyone else here. And also the authors of co-published LIPI Springer's book, and editors at LIPI Press, and also, of course, distinguished researchers, educators, librarians, and publication staff from ministries and institutions across Indonesia. So actually, it is a great pleasure for me on behalf of LIPI to welcome you all at this LIPI Springer Publishing Forum 2020. And this event happens due to very close cooperation between LIPI through our LIPI Press and also Springer's, as I remember, since 2016. Yeah. So as the leading research and scientific institutions in Indonesia, actually LIPI is the oldest and the largest one. Of course, we have at LIPI responsibility to conduct advanced and frontier research in Indonesia. We have also to pioneer any frontier research activities and play as the gateway for global collaborations with another institutions and universities across Indonesia, and they can join us to the global collaboration through LIPI. Yeah. So on the other hand, since 5 years ago at least, we have been established as the research infrastructure provider for any institutions in Indonesia. Yeah, this role is very important in Indonesia because we have to improve the critical mass problem on the lacking of research infrastructure and high quality human resources needed in most of modern research activities. So as you already show and watch in the opening video, yeah, we also through LIPI Press have a new program since this year to acquire local knowledge, yeah, and republish it in a well-documented form, either in multimedia, something like video or YouTube, or also in the written documents, yeah, as the book and so on. So we welcome very much any potential writers in Indonesia, yeah. But not this is actually not only limited to Indonesian people, but it is also open for anyone, yeah, with any citizenship. And in this regard, so cooperation with Springer is very crucial to open our research result and make all of them available and accessible to global communities. Yeah, this is very important in scientific communities, I think, and everyone knows very well about that. And we have assigned LIPI Press to conduct this important role. So in this sense, cooperation between co-publishing cooperation between LIPI Press and Springer is quite important instrument for us to enable and to open all of the publishing works from Indonesian researchers or any research conducted across Indonesia to be available for global communities. So, ladies and gentlemen, an important milestone that broke LIPI Press step forward towards go international, yeah, quote unquote, go international was a meeting between Springer and LIPI Press, yeah, if I could remind myself, at the Frankfurt International Book Fair. Yeah, that time I think the head of LIPI Press was Ibu Rahmi, yeah, on October 2015. Yeah, so the meeting, through the meeting, we have agreed, yeah, LIPI Press and Springer, in a co-publishing agreement, yeah, between LIPI Press and Springer Book Publishing, and that was subsequently signed online through the DocuSign application on January, as I remember, in the beginning of 2016. Yeah. So at that time, I was still a deputy chairman of LIPI, and I strongly encourage Ibu Rahmi that time to proceed with the agreement. Yeah. So that time it was agreed that 5 books previously already published by LIPI Press would be republished through LIPI Press Springer co-publishing scheme in English version. Yeah. And the manuscript were successfully revised substantially in accordance with the Springer standard, of course, and also with the development of current issues in the field, yeah, because it was already published books, yeah, previously, and so far, in total we have 5 co-publishing titles. 3 books have been published and globally disseminated through Springer distribution network, and the other two are hopefully going to get published soon. Yeah. So thank you very much again for Springer. Yeah. So in order to continue encouraging the global dissemination of LIPI's research results through scientific books, so LIPI Press and Springer again agreed to extend the co-publishing agreement with another more 7 titles, yeah, to be co-published hopefully soon. Yeah. I expect it will come soon. And the selected titles have already been considered very important and interesting for global communities in the field, yeah, I do believe. So I do hope this event would be, you can see the list of the 5 books and another more 7 books, maybe later on, yeah, because it's quite long. I do hope this event would be a good platform to motivate, yeah, Indonesian researchers, educators, and another book authors to produce internationally scientific books and well-known global publishing house. That is the first hope. Yeah, and secondly, we expect that this event also a good platform to provide valuable knowledge exchange, yeah, in terms of experience and also skills, yeah, for all of us, yeah, to prepare, yeah, how to prepare technically, yeah, any aspect of the scientific books, yeah, that will fit the global standard, yeah, in particular the Springer standard, of course, yeah, and also we expect to strengthen global publishing network again, in particular with Springer, and to increase access to research results through LIPI Press Springer co-publishing scheme. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, the attendance. So, unfortunately, this time, yeah, during this pandemic, yeah, we have still suffered with lengthy pandemic, yeah, and no one knows when it will end, yeah, hopefully maybe the end of next year, yeah, hopefully, but no one knows, yeah. But at least we have more benefit, yeah, due to this pandemic, because we are able to now open the forum for more audiences, yeah, and involve many more speakers and participants from all over the world, actually, yeah, technically also, yeah, and we expect to have much more attendance than the offline forum, yeah, as already organized previously since 2018, as I remember. Yeah, we have a similar forum every year, but offline during the event of Indonesian Science Expo. Yeah, I do believe this online event would be more beneficial for a lot of people, yeah, across Indonesia. So I'm glad to announce also that now we have the Springer team also from the applied sciences, yeah, in additional to the existing humanities and social sciences, yeah, as I remember, yeah. So we hope that we can expand our co-publishing agreement and also in applied science field, yeah, and maybe in the future also in another fields, yeah, maybe medical and so on. Yeah. So before concluding my welcoming remarks, I would like to again greatly appreciate Springer for continuing support, and I would like to also convey my highest appreciation, of course, to the authors and all authors and editors for your excellent work of the co-publishing books. Yeah. So, and we highly expect to have more excellent authors in the future. Yeah, more and more excellent authors in the future. Yeah, hopefully. And special thanks also go to LIPI Press team, of course, yeah, Mbak Prapti and her colleague at LIPI Press for your hard and I think very excellent work to make this event happens, yeah, to realize the the co-publishing, yeah, hopefully the another 7 co-publishing books will come soon, as already requested by the organizer. Please allow me to declare officially that the LIPI Springer Publishing Forum 2020 is open. Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a nice and fruitful discussion during this forum. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
The time to Mbak siapa ini tadi?
Sarwenda, Bapak.
Ya.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Terima kasih Pak Han, thank you so much. And this will be followed by a group of photo session. Selanjutnya kita masuk ke sesi foto bersama. Mohon izin untuk melakukan pengambilan gambar kepada Ibu dan Bapak panelis. Terima kasih. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, sebelum masuk ke pokok acara, perlu kami sampaikan bahwa LIPI Press telah menyiapkan sejumlah hadiah menarik bagi Anda yang berpartisipasi pada saat sesi diskusi dan tanya jawab. Selain itu, LIPI Press bekerjasama dengan Springer juga telah menyiapkan hadiah khusus bagi Anda, 3 followers dengan postingan terbaik tentang webinar hari ini. Jangan lupa untuk mention IG kami @LIPIPress. Jadi silakan ikuti acara ini dari awal hingga akhir, karena selain pengetahuan akan didapat, hadiah-hadiah menarik lainnya juga telah menanti Anda. Ladies and gentlemen, now this is a high time for us to listen to the speech and presentation from our speakers. Therefore, I hand over the session to the moderator, Noviastuti Putri Indrasari. Kepada Mbak Novi, kami persilakan.
Terima kasih Mbak Sarwenda. I'll take it from here. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, LIPI Springer Publishing Forum 2020. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Novi, and I'm one of the editors in LIPI Press, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the third forum held by Springer and also LIPI Press. The first one was held in 2018, and it was mainly discussed about the technical aspect of co-publishing process. And this initial forum has inspired us, both LIPI and also Springer, to arrange a bigger forum so that more participants can join and a broader topics can be discussed. Therefore, in 2019, we held another forum. It is a face-to-face forum where more than 100 people from different backgrounds join. And this year, despite this pandemic situation, we are still eager to invite several parties to take part, to discuss, and then to share experiences related to some key issues and publication. And here, I'd like to welcome to our speakers that have joined us today. We have two representatives from Springer Nature. We have Miss Alec Westcott Campbell, and then we have Mr. Ramesh Ramnath. And actually, there is another one from Springer, Miss Sarah, but she is based in London, and due to the different time zone, she will have the pre-recorded presentation. And then we also have here one of the authors or editor of the co-published books, Ibu Atikah Nur Alami. She's also joined us today. And then we also have Ibu Prapti Sasiwi, the director of LIPI Press. So good morning to you all. Selamat pagi. And for ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. The first one, there will be two sessions of presentation. The first session, it will consist of 3 speakers. The first and second speaker will talk for about 20 minutes. And then the third speaker will deliver his presentation for about 40 minutes. And after that, we will have the first Q&A session. And then for the second session, we will have 2 speakers, and each speaker will talk for about 20 minutes. And then after that, we will have the second Q&A session after the end of presentation. And the second one, all of the participants will have the opportunity to submit text question to today's presenters by typing your question into the question pane of your control panel. You may send in your question during the presentation, and we will collect and address them during the Q&A session. Bapak Ibu yang terhormat, bagi Bapak Ibu yang nanti mempunyai pertanyaan yang ingin disampaikan kepada pembicara, silahkan nanti bisa menuliskannya di kolom Q&A yang ada di layar HP atau laptop Bapak Ibu. Dan seperti yang sudah disampaikan oleh MC tadi, kami sudah menyiapkan 10 buku gratis yang akan kami bagikan pada 10 penanya terpilih. Jadi terus ikuti webinar ini dan silahkan siapkan, disimak dan kemudian nanti disampaikan pertanyaannya. And the third one, for the e-certificate, it is only given to those who join the Zoom room and send the webinar feedback. So we have, beside this Zoom room, we also do YouTube streaming, live streaming at the moment, because we have a limited capacity for the Zoom, so we open for YouTube streaming. You will receive the link of the survey 40 minutes before the webinar ends. So please stay tuned and don't go anywhere. And we would really appreciate if you could complete the feedback and send it to us. Jadi untuk sertifikat elektronik, kami hanya menyediakan bagi peserta yang ada di ruang Zoom meeting. Karena selain di Zoom, peserta juga bisa menyimak acara ini melalui streaming YouTube secara langsung live. Dan hanya diberikan kepada peserta yang mengirimkan umpan balik kepada kami. Jadi nanti 40 menit sebelum acara diakhiri, 40 menit terakhir, kami akan membagikan tautan umpan balik dan mohon Bapak Ibu bisa mengisi umpan balik itu. So now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to our first speaker, Ibu Prapti Sasiwi. And I'd like to introduce you, Ibu Prapti is the director of LIPI Press. Under her supervision, LIPI Press has launched a new program called LIPI Acquisition Program on Local Wisdom and Knowledge, or in Bahasa Indonesia, Program Akuisisi Pengetahuan dan Kearifan Lokal. This program aims to collect and provide information of local wisdom and knowledge and transform them into publication, both in the form of books and also audiovisual. So starting from this year, we do not only publish in the form of books, but we also do publish in audiovisual formats. So we have, as mentioned by the chairman of Indonesian Institute of Sciences, we have many publication in the format of audiovisual, in the format of documentary film and then animation and etc. Through this program, LIPI attempts to protect, conserve, and preserve the existence of various local wisdom as a way to maintain the national identity. And potential authors from diverse backgrounds are invited to submit their works. And for today's presentation, Ibu Prapti Sasiwi will talk about the global publishing partnership through the LIPI Springer Co-Publishing. Ibu Prapti Sasiwi, you have 20 minutes to present your presentation. Silahkan Ibu Prapti.
Terima kasih Mbak Novi. Mohon izin Pak Kepala untuk memulai presentasi. Yang saya hormati Bapak Kepala LIPI, Bapak Handoko, terima kasih atas kehadirannya untuk hadir di forum LIPI Springer ini. The Honorable Springer teams, good morning Alex, Ramesh, and Sarah. Thank you for joining with us. Yang saya hormati juga Ibu Atika selaku narasumber dan Bapak Ibu para peserta webinar serta teman-teman LIPI Press yang saya banggakan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Mohon izin untuk menyampaikan presentasi dalam bahasa Indonesia. Baik Bapak Ibu, berikut akan saya sampaikan terkait LIPI Press dan kerjasamanya dengan Springer. Next slide please. Lanjut. Lanjut slide-nya. Ya, ini sedikit sejarah tentang LIPI Press, bahwa LIPI Press didirikan dengan SK Kepala LIPI pada tahun 2002 dan mempunyai tugas melaksanakan perencanaan, pelaksanaan, penyebaran, dan pemasaran hasil-hasil terbitan, baik tercetak maupun elektronik. Awal kami berdiri memang kami hanya menerbitkan buku-buku hasil penelitian LIPI dan juga mempunyai misi untuk menghidupkan kembali jurnal-jurnal yang saat itu mati suri. Saat itu juga kami masih pasif, hanya menerima naskah yang masuk dan kami bisa mendiseminasikan dengan mencetak minimal 500 eksemplar untuk diseminasi terbitan. Mungkin berbeda untuk saat ini karena tahun ini kita juga sudah tidak melakukan cetak lagi. karena memang pada awal-awal berdiri LIPI Press bekerja sama dengan distributor yaitu Yayasan Obor yang mewajibkan minimal 500 eksemplar untuk bisa didistribusikan ke seluruh Indonesia. Dan di awal tahun ini melalui SK Kepala LIPI juga, LIPI Press diberi tugas baru yaitu akuisisi naskah. Jadi kami tidak hanya menerbitkan hasil para peneliti LIPI, tapi juga menerima karya dari luar LIPI untuk diakuisisi. Karya yang masuk akan kami seleksi dan yang lolos akan kami akuisisi, dan karya tersebut juga bisa dalam bentuk buku maupun audiovisual. Karya yang terpilih nanti akan kami diseminasikan melalui public domain kami secara terbuka untuk umum. Bisa next slide. Slide berikutnya. Nah, ini adalah tahapan proses penerbitan dari mulai akuisisi naskah hingga penyebarluasannya. Seperti yang telah disampaikan bahwa di tahap awal tahap akuisisi yang kami lakukan yaitu pencarian, penilaian, dan penetapan naskah yang lolos verifikasi. Kemudian proses selanjutnya adalah pengemasan, di mana yang kami lakukan adalah mengembangkan naskah, kemudian juga tahap penyuntingan dan juga tahap desain. Pada tahap ini teman-teman melakukan editing dan layout juga cover design. Kemudian tahap berikutnya adalah tahap penyebarluasan. Ini adalah tahap untuk mendiseminasikan buku atau audio visual, dan proses diseminasi ini biasa juga dilakukan dengan beberapa cara seperti bedah buku, review buku, atau promosi melalui medsos-medsosnya LIPI atau LIPI Press. Next. Ini proses penerbitan buku di LIPI Press. Jadi tahap pertama adalah penerimaan naskah. Setelah ada penilaian dan pengesahan, maka manuskrip masuk ke tahap selanjutnya, yang kemudian diproses penyuntingan, pengembangan, dan desainnya. Ini yang biasa kita sebut proses pracetak. Tahap selanjutnya adalah tahap proofreading dan predami. Dan ini adalah tahap melihat hasil yang telah diedit dan di layout. Setelah naskah mendapat persetujuan dari penulis untuk terbit, maka kita terbitkan dalam bentuk e-book. Setelah itu naskah kami diseminasi melalui website. Lanjut, Mbak. Ya, terkait program akuisisi, ini juga merupakan arahan dari Pak Kepala LIPI. Ini dimaksudkan untuk mewujudkan SDM Indonesia yang cerdas dan unggul melalui penyediaan informasi yang kredibel dan inovatif, baik yang bermuatan ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi maupun pengetahuan lokal. Strategi awal kami memang rencananya adalah roadshow ke daerah-daerah untuk bisa memberikan sosialisasi terkait penerbitan maupun pembuatan video pada putra-putra daerah, sehingga diharapkan mereka bisa menjadi agennya LIPI Press yang berada di daerah-daerah. Namun karena pandemi, kami baru bisa melakukan sosialisasi ini secara daring untuk mengenalkan program akuisisi ini. Lanjut, Mbak. Program akuisisi ini juga untuk mendapatkan dan menerbitkan berbagai informasi bernilai pengetahuan dan kearifan lokal, serta ilmu pengetahuan hasil penelitian dan pengembangannya. Jadi awalnya memang kami ingin mengangkat kearifan lokal yang ada di Indonesia, karena supaya bisa dikemas dalam bentuk yang lebih baik, baik buku maupun audiovisual, dan didiseminasikan secara luas dan dapat diakses secara terbuka oleh masyarakat. Jadi tidak terbatas pada buku-buku saja, jadi dimungkinkan juga untuk dalam bentuk audiovisual. Next, Mbak. Nah, ini bisa saya sampaikan capaian program akuisisi tahun ini. Dari hasil verifikasi dan penilaian 137 judul, yang terpilih ada 67 judul, terdiri dari 37 buku ilmiah, 17 film dokumenter, 12 buku ilmiah populer, 1 film animasi, dan ada 13 judul untuk potensi diterbitkan tahun berikutnya, serta ada 54 judul yang tidak terpilih, baik dari buku maupun video. Lanjut. Untuk 67 judul yang terpilih, ini ada kategori 1 yang masuk terbitan ilmiah ada 54 judul. Jadi ada 40 judul buku ilmiah dan 17 judul film dokumenter. Dan untuk kategori 2 yang masuk kategori 2 itu ada 13 judul, buku ilmiah populer 12 judul dan 1 judul video animasi. Lanjut, Mbak. Nah, ini contoh-contoh terbitan LIPI Press. Jadi di sini bisa dilihat ada yang terbitan dari Hayati dan juga terbitan dari IPSK. Memang kebanyakan yang masuk ke LIPI Press itu adalah terbitan dari bidang ilmu sosial dan Hayati. Jadi masih banyak lagi yang sebetulnya kami berharap bahwa dari kedeputian IPT maupun IPK bisa lebih banyak lagi yang masuk ke kami. Lanjut, Mbak. Yang tadi telah disampaikan oleh Pak Kepala bahwa awal kerjasama LIPI Press dan Springer diawali tahun 2015 dengan Kepala Balai kami sebelumnya yaitu Ibu Rahmi Lestari bertemu dengan perwakilan Springer di Frankfurt Book Fair. Kemudian di tahun 2016 dari perjanjian kerjasama antara LIPI Press dan Springer disepakati 5 buku untuk perjanjian tahap 1 dan di tahun 2017 terbit 1 buku. Kemudian tahun 2018 terbit 2 buku dan tahun 2018 juga pertama kali Forum LIPI Springer diadakan tepatnya saat IC di BSD dan kemudian di tahun 2019 kemarin juga adalah Forum LIPI Springer yang kedua kalinya dan di tahun 2019 disepakati untuk melanjutkan kerjasama dan ada 7 buku lagi yang akan diterbitkan di tahap 2 ini. Dan ini masih juga dalam proses baik di LIPI Press-nya maupun di Springer. Nah ini 3 judul buku yang telah terbit sebelumnya. Nah ini juga semuanya dari bidang sosial ya Mbak Nevi ya, selaku PJ-nya ini. Lanjut. Ini 7 judul buku yang di tahap kedua yang sedang proses. Jadi ada beberapa yang memang sudah masuk di tahap penelaahan di Springer, ada beberapa yang juga masih diproses di kami untuk terjemahan. Lanjut. Nah, ini dokumentasi untuk Forum Springer di 2018 ya di IC. Saat itu juga dihadiri oleh Bu Deputi PSK dan Pak Mego selaku Deputi Jasil ya. Lanjut. Ya, ini Forum Springer di tahun 2019 kemarin masih bisa bertatap muka dan sepertinya Bapak Kepala berhalangan hadir saat itu karena kalau nggak salah ke Paris ya. Saya lanjut. Bisa dilanjut berikutnya. Nah, inilah tanggung jawab masing-masing pihak di kerjasama ini. Jadi pihak Springer bertanggung jawab untuk proses penerbitan di Springer, dimulai dari telaah, proses pracetaknya, dan juga diseminasi secara global. LIPI Press bertanggung jawab untuk melakukan koordinasi dengan Springer dan penulis, selain juga melakukan copy edit dan proofread sebelumnya. Dan penulis bertanggung jawab untuk menindaklanjuti hasil telaah atau masukan dari Springer sesuai tenggat waktu yang diberikan dan mengomunikasikannya melalui LIPI Press. Nah, ini yang sebetulnya kami perlukan, yaitu komitmen penulis untuk menyelesaikan telaah dari pihak Springer, minimal menyampaikan progres pada kami agar kami bisa menyampaikan juga ke pihak Springernya. Sepertinya itu yang bisa saya sampaikan. Kami juga berharap kerjasama ini semakin berkembang. Yang sebelumnya memang mayoritas adalah naskah-naskah ilmu sosial, ke depan juga akan mencoba menawarkan buku-buku dari bidang ilmu lainnya seperti teknik, hayati maupun kebumian. Masih ada slide-nya? Sepertinya tadi ada satu slide yang tertinggal ya, yang terkait proses penelaahan proses penerbitan di kerjasama dengan Springer. Ya, 15, slide 15. Nah ini. Bentar ya, Dek.
Mbak. Terlihat, Mbak?
Di saya terlihat, bagaimana dengan yang lain?
Terlihat, no?
Terlihat ya?
Ya, terlihat, terlihat.
Baik.
Silakan.
Jadi saya jelaskan sedikit terkait langkah-langkah penerbitan buku dengan skema co-publishing ini. Diawali dengan LIPI Press memberikan rekomendasi untuk terbitan-terbitan apa saja yang bisa dipilih. Jadi kami mengirimkan katalog LIPI Press. Kemudian Springer memilih judul-judul mana yang akan dikerjasamakan. Setelah Springer memilih judul-judul tersebut, kemudian proses penerjemahan itu menjadi tanggung jawab penulis atau satuan kerja. Memang sebelumnya itu kami lakukan, tapi di tahun ini itu sudah mulai dialihkan ke satuan kerja masing-masing. Setelah itu penulis melengkapi proposal buku, kemudian naskah terjemahan dan proposal buku dikirimkan ke Springer. Kemudian dilakukan penelaahan substansi oleh Springer dan hasil telaah diterima oleh LIPI Press dan penulis. Kemudian revisi penulis dan pengiriman ulang lagi naskah final ke Springer. Setelah naskah dinyatakan lolos telaah di Springer, maka kontrak penerbitan antara LIPI Press, Springer dan penulis dengan Springer mulai berjalan. Kemudian mulai juga produksi buku di Springer untuk copy edit, typesetting, proofread dan printingnya. Setelah itu dilakukan proses penerbitan dan diseminasi buku secara global oleh Springer, baik cetak maupun e-book. Saya rasa itu tambahannya ya, Mbak Novi. Mungkin nanti bisa didiskusikan saja untuk pertanyaan-pertanyaannya. Terima kasih, mohon maaf jika ada kekurangan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Baik, terima kasih banyak Ibu Prapti Sasiwi. Selanjutnya kita simak bersama video singkat terkait dengan program akuisisi pengetahuan di LIPI Press.
Halo sahabat LIPI, ayo coba kalian ingat dan perhatikan lingkungan tempat asal kalian. Apakah di sana ada suatu warisan budaya atau sebuah pengetahuan yang unik dan hanya dimiliki oleh warga setempat? Jika ada, itu semua termasuk pengetahuan lokal. Coba kamu perhatikan, apa saja kegiatannya dan apa yang dihasilkan. Siapa pelakunya? Bagaimana dan kapan dilakukan? Apa sih pengetahuan lokal itu? Menurut Clifford Geertz, pengetahuan lokal adalah pengetahuan yang dimiliki oleh masyarakat lokal dalam suatu wilayah hingga berkembang suatu sistem budaya yang menjadi pedoman bagi masyarakat setempat dalam melaksanakan aktivitas sehari-hari. Pengetahuan lokal sangat terkait dengan lingkungan alam, sosial, ataupun budaya tempat kelompok masyarakat itu hidup dan melakukan berbagai aktivitas dalam menjalankan kehidupannya. Sebagai negara yang luas dan kaya akan ragam budaya, Indonesia tentu punya beragam pengetahuan lokal dari berbagai wilayah. Contohnya, masyarakat Aceh memiliki mawah, yaitu pengetahuan lokal berupa pola kerjasama ekonomi dan bisnis yang dipraktikkan oleh masyarakat dengan menggunakan sistem bagi hasil sesuai dengan kesepakatan yang dibuat di awal. Lalu, warga Kalimantan memiliki ulap doyo, yaitu kain tenun ikat berbahan serat daun doyo, jenis tanaman pandan yang berserat kuat dan tumbuh secara liar di pedalaman Kalimantan, yang terinspirasi dari flora dan fauna yang ada di tepian Sungai Mahakam. Di Konawe Selatan, Sulawesi Tenggara, ada pengetahuan lokal berupa nilai kegotong royongan yang disebut melesi, yaitu tindakan meringankan beban satu sama lain, baik dalam suka maupun duka. Ketiga contoh tersebut hanya sebagian kecil dari ragam pengetahuan lokal yang ada di Indonesia. Artinya, pengetahuan lokal itu sangat penting ya. Jadi sederhananya, pengetahuan lokal berfungsi untuk menjamin kelangsungan hidup masyarakat lokal agar sejahtera, serasi, dan seimbang. Pengetahuan lokal juga berfungsi sebagai penentu keberlanjutan identitas asli suatu komunitas. Oleh karena itu, pengetahuan lokal di suatu daerah tentunya patut menjadi sumber informasi untuk memperkaya hasanah pengetahuan bagi masyarakat. Selain untuk menunjukkan kekayaan budaya bangsa kita, sebuah pengetahuan lokal di suatu daerah mungkin juga bisa menjadi referensi bagi masyarakat di daerah lain untuk mengembangkan dan meningkatkan taraf hidup mereka. Lembaga Ilmu Pengetahuan Indonesia, LIPI, mulai tahun 2020 memiliki program akuisisi pengetahuan lokal. Program ini bertujuan untuk mendukung dan memotivasi para penulis buku atau kreator audiovisual yang memiliki karya berupa pengetahuan lokal. Tentunya ada insentif yang diberikan bagi pemilik konten. Kamu baru punya ide atau konsep? Bisa. Kamu punya karya berupa buku dan sudah pernah terbit? Tentu bisa. Kamu punya film dokumenter atau animasi? Bisa dong. Program akuisisi pengetahuan lokal ini bertujuan untuk meningkatkan produktivitas publikasi nasional, baik dalam bentuk buku maupun audiovisual, serta mendesiminasikannya melalui kanal publik, sehingga masyarakat dapat mengakses berbagai informasi yang bermuatan konten pengetahuan lokal dengan mudah. Gimana caranya? Sahabat LIPI bisa mengunjungi laman resmi LIPI Press, lipipress.lipi.go.id/pages/program/kearifan/lokal untuk mendapatkan informasi selengkapnya terkait persyaratan dan pendaftaran program ini. Usaha pelestarian pengetahuan lokal harus terus dilakukan agar kita tahu bagaimana cara memperlakukan alam, menanggapi fenomena alam, serta hubungan masyarakat lokal dari beragam wilayah di Nusantara. Yuk, bersama kita rawat ingatan akan pengetahuan lokal yang ada di Indonesia. Halo sahabat LIPI, ayo coba.
Baik, terima kasih atas paparan dari Ibu Prapti Sasili dan juga videonya. We actually got several questions here. The participants are quite eager and enthusiastic. But hold on, we will discuss that on Q&A session. So, seperti yang sudah dijelaskan oleh Ibu Prapti, kami memang mempunyai program akuisisi tahun ini ya, dan ini terbuka lebar untuk semua orang dari semua background, latar belakang. Jadi tidak hanya ditujukan untuk peneliti atau penulis atau dosen, akademisi, tapi semua orang dari seluruh lapisan masyarakat bisa berpartisipasi dengan mengirimkan naskah buku atau konten audiovisual pada kami. Baik, we are now going to the next agenda, and for the next presentation, we have Miss Alex Westcott Campbell, or I usually call her Alex. She is, I think she is the most with whom I most contact with. Yes, since the beginning of the co-publishing agreement between LIPI Press and Springer, she assists me in doing the co-publishing. And today, Miss Alex will talk about the Springer LIPI co-publishing in the Humanities and Social Sciences Books program. Before we go to her presentation, I'd like to introduce her to you. So Miss Alex is a senior publishing editor at Springer. She handles book acquisitions across the humanities and social sciences, focusing on Southeast and East Asia. Her session will give an overview of the publishing landscape in Indonesia and the Springer Humanities and Social Sciences book program in Asia. She will also explain the LIPI Springer co-publishing partnership, its history, structure, and the books published to date. So, Miss Alex, how are you doing?
Morning, Mary. Thank you so much for the introduction. Is my connection clear?
Yeah, clear.
Great. Thanks. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And again, it's my first virtual conference. thank you very much for having us, and I'm pleased that despite everything going on in the world at the moment, that we're able to join you again at the Indonesian Science Expo. So thank you very much for having us. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Handoko once again for hosting us at ISE and for putting together another forum, and a warm welcome to Ibu Prapti as the new director following Ms. Rami, who I have dealt with in her capacity as the editorial director at LIPI Press previously. So I'm afraid some of my slides will be doubling up, and I'll be presenting the publishing process in English. So I do apologize that there will be a bit of an overlap, but ultimately we just want to make sure that it's very clear in terms of how the co-publishing agreement works in the Humanities and Social Sciences books program. As Novi mentioned, I am the editor working on the co-publishing agreement with LIPI Press, covering Humanities and Social Sciences, and I'm very pleased today to be joined by my colleague Ramesh, who will be discussing books and journals, but focusing more on journals and the sciences program. We both sit in the Singapore office ordinarily, although of course at the moment we're all working from home. So yeah, let me start with my presentation. All right, so the first thing I'd like to do today is just give a brief overview of the publishing landscape in Indonesia. I've touched on both books and journals, and I think this overview also indicates why Springer is interested in partnering with a press like LIPI Press and the Indonesian Institute of Sciences. So next slide, please, Novi. Okay, we can move on to the next one. Okay, so, all right. And Novi, I'm actually just opening the slides on my desk here because it's obscured a bit. Okay. All right, so, sorry, I'm just pressing. Right, so the first thing I'd like to touch on is that the research and development spend has increased at a rate of 3% globally and is the strongest in Asia in Indonesia. This data is reflecting up till 2018, so it is slightly outdated in terms of the data from 2019. Next slide, please. This slide is showing that Indonesia's research and development spend has grown at 4% per year, which is higher than the global average. As you can see, it's India, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, and then followed by Indonesia, and then Thailand and the Philippines. Next slide, please. In terms of journals, the article output has grown by 15% per year on average, which is above the average for other Asian countries. As you can see, this graph is showing how the article output in terms of journals has regressed over the years from 2009 to 2018. So Ramesh will be touching, as I mentioned, will be touching on journal publishing, but it's very interesting for us to see that there is such a strong output in terms of research publishing in journals. Next slide, please. This again is showing that the number of journal articles and book chapters, this is obviously crossing into my publishing territory and discussing books. It's also growing in terms of books output from Indonesia. And this is data that is showing the publications from Indonesia in Springer in recent years, again, also between 2009 and 2018. The lighter blue here showing article output in journals, and the darker blue part of the graph showing book chapter output. So as you can see, we have really seen a boost in the number of submissions and publications coming from Indonesia in the past 10 years. Next slide, please. In terms of disciplinary breakdown, this is showing that the researchers from Indonesia are publishing predominantly in Springer's life sciences journals. As you can see there, 13% in our life sciences journals. Then we have medicine and public health at 11%. Engineering, which Ramesh will also be covering, at 11%. Social sciences and environment, I do cover some environmental issues in my program, but yeah, environment and social sciences at 8% each, and then the remaining disciplines at 49%, which will be covering humanities somewhere in there as well. Next slide, please. This slide is showing that researchers from Indonesia are increasingly published in nature journals, our nature.com journals in the past years. And as you can see, a huge boost between 2009 and 2013, and then a sudden increase from 2015 up to 2018. So we are seeing more and more science published in the nature journals. I also want to touch on, next slide please, open access in Indonesia. My colleague Sarah Crowley, as mentioned, she will be doing an online, she's recorded an online presentation on open access in Indonesia, but we've really seen a surge in the amount of open access coming from the country. There was a study on this link in Nature that showed that Indonesia may be the world's open access leader. They found that 81% of 20,000 journal articles published in 2017 with an Indonesia-affiliated author are available to read for free somewhere online, and that 74% of these are published with open access licenses. So this is certainly proving true in the books program as well, as more and more we are publishing open access books. This includes a recent partnership with the University of Indonesia, Universitas Indonesia, or UI, and we are publishing more and more open access books. Rather than go too much into the open access model today, I'm going to leave that to my colleague Sarah to expand upon. Next slide, please. So I'd just like to give a quick overview as well of which Ibu Prapti has already done for me, but just to touch again on the structure of Springer Nature and the brands within our company. So Springer in 2015, there was a merger. Springer merged with Nature and also absorbed Biomed Central and a leading open access publishing imprint, Macmillan Education, Scientific American, and Palgrave Macmillan. On the humanities and social side of things, both Springer, which I'm handling, and Palgrave Macmillan are, of course, social science publishers. Palgrave Macmillan focusing on social sciences and humanities, as well as business, economics, and political sciences and law. So the publishing agreement that we signed at the Frankfurt Book Fair in 2016 has been covering humanities and social sciences disciplines exclusively to date. But we are, of course, at this point looking at the possibility of receiving proposals from other disciplines, which Ramesh will be touching on in the subsequent presentation. So just a quick overview of, next slide, please, of Springer's history in academic publishing. We are the largest academic publisher in the world in terms of output, especially in books output. We are publishing 13,000 new books every year. We publish across disciplines. There has occasionally been a misconception that Springer is exclusively focused on STEM disciplines, but we are very strong in the humanities and social sciences. In fact, we are the largest humanities and social sciences book publisher in terms of books output, if you're measuring books output per year. We publish more than 300,000 books, which are available to readers on our digital platforms, Springer Link, springer.com. And yeah, we are also pioneers in digital book publishing. We're the first publisher to offer all our books we're the first publisher to offer all of our books in electronic format alongside the print version. We still supply books in print, and we work on a print on demand basis. So as the book is ordered, then we print it and ship it. But predominantly our readership is accessed through our library subscriptions, our ebook collections into institutional libraries. Next slide, please. This is a summary of our different platforms. As I mentioned, our digital platforms, they're visited over 1 billion times per year. Our content platforms are visited by an average of 2 million times a day. So we really have a strong digital presence. Journals, which again, Ramesh will touch on, but we publish 300,000 articles in 3,000 journals, and we work with over 1 million authors in our journals publishing program. As I've mentioned already, we publish 13,000 books per year, and we on average are publishing around 50 new books every single day. As an open access leader, nearly 30% of Springer Nature's content is being published as OA. Of course, open access is still a relatively new conversation in Asia. but it's one that is being had more and more frequently. And as the overview of the Indonesian publishing landscape indicated earlier on, Indonesia really is a leader in open access publishing. So I really encourage you to stay logged in for Sarah's presentation, which will be covering the benefits of open access publishing. On the journal side of things, we have over 91,000 articles published as Gold Open Access, the Gold, which is complete open access under a CC BY license. I'd also like to mention that we've just published our 1,000 open access books very recently. And yeah, we're looking forward to continuing to encourage open access publishing in Indonesia and in the rest of the region. Next slide, please. I'd like to give a quick overview of the type of books that we're publishing, because of course, when you're submitting a book proposal, it's very important to be clear on what format you'll be putting forward. Rather than go through all of these book types, I just want to focus on a few of them that we have been publishing and are accepting submissions for through the LIPI co-publishing agreement. The first is obviously monographs, which can be single or co-authored books. Usually of upward of 90,000 words, which are published at about 180 to 200 pages or more. The second book type that we have been publishing are edited volumes, which of course have multiple contributors involved in terms of chapters, led by an editor or more, sometimes 2 to 3 editors curating that content. Again, the same sort of length, around 90,000, 100,000 words, and yeah, usually around 10 to 12 book chapters as an average. So by all means, if you are within your institution organizing a conference or a workshop or seminar that is working with a very specific theme, and that conference is conducive to cherry picking some papers and developing them into chapters on a specific topic, then we're very much open to edited volume proposals as well. I'd like to also distinguish here between edited volumes and proceedings. We do get a lot of inquiries on publishing proceedings following conferences. And in other disciplines, such as computer science and engineering, we do publish a lot of proceedings. Traditionally, in the humanities and social sciences, we have not done so, but this is changing. However, we have very set criteria in terms of what type of proceedings we accept. We prefer proceedings that have a very strong thematic focus and aren't too broad. So if it's a conference that's covering social sciences, generally we're unlikely to publish the proceedings. But if it's covering, say, aspects of political science, in Southeast Asia, then we would be more susceptible to accepting proposals on proceedings. Within the LIPI co-publishing agreement with Springer, we've only really published monographs and edited volumes, but we are open to proceedings and also Springer briefs or shorter books, which are between 20 to 50,000 words. Again, these are a separate book category that are published in their own respective subject collections or series. So they would tend to fall outside of the LIPI Springer co-publishing arrangement, which tends to focus on the longer form books. But at the same time, we have had some shorter books. One book that's currently in development by Mita Novaria, which is Population Growth and Welfare, is a slightly shorter book, if I'm not wrong, Novi, and that will still be published as a hardback book in the Springer LIPI co-publishing agreement. When we publish under the LIPI Springer co-publishing agreement, we also include both brands on the book. So the LIPI press as well as the Springer brand is included. I would just like to, next slide, please. And moving, next slide, please. So we've already been over the formation of the co-publishing agreement in 2016 at the Frankfurt Book Fair. This was a meeting between the EKP members, which included LIPI Press, ROSDA, OBOR, and as well as University Gajah Mada Press, UGM Press. And this resulted in several co-publishing agreements being signed between the respective presses. Next slide, please. And this was obviously an image of when the original agreement was signed. We then participated, next slide please, and these images have already been shown by Ibu Prapti, but this was again ISE in 2018, where we renewed the co-publishing agreement and expanded the original set of titles from 5 to 7. And we are, next slide please. The titles that we have published thus far in Humanities and Social Sciences include Dr. Riwanto's The Politics of Migration in Indonesia and Beyond. We have a second book from him, which is currently in the final stages of manuscript development, From Colonization to Nation State, The Political Demography of Indonesia. We also published, I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Atika today, who will be discussing her book and her experience curating this book on foreign policy and energy security issues in Indonesia. And at our previous forum, which was held, as Novi mentioned, last year in July in Jakarta, we were also very happy to discuss 6 decades of Indonesia-China relations with Dr. Sinaga. So in terms of the co-publishing agreement, the original set of titles put forward, as I mentioned, we've got another book by Mita Noveria, Population, Growth and Welfare, and then Riwanto's book, From Colonization to Nation State. I'd also like to point out here that we are open to titles that are being translated from Bahasa Indonesia into English, but we're also open to titles that have recently been published in English or written in English and published in English under LIPI Press. The way we work that then is to allow LIPI Press the exclusive distribution rights within the Indonesian market, and then for Springer to take on the international distribution, including the ebooks distribution in our library e-collections. Next slide, please. Again, this has already been gone through, but I'd just like to reiterate it in English in terms of the procedure for putting forward a book proposal. The first step, if your book has been written in Bahasa Indonesia, is to discuss a translation with LIPI Press and with Novia, and to get the support to conduct the translation. Translation, as we all know, is is not as straightforward as it might seem. And of course, the greatest challenge is finding translators who also have a subject knowledge in your research area to ensure that there is a sophisticated translation of the material. If you're able to get translation support, or if you've published a book recently in English under LIPI Press that you feel would suit the Springer co-publishing agreement, then you can write to LIPI Press directly. They will then submit the draft manuscript as well as the proposal to myself in the Humanities and Social Sciences program. We undergo two rounds of single-blind peer review. I really wish to reiterate here that if you're putting your book forward for co-publication, that you need to be actively involved in the process, because the version, even if it was an English version originally that was published on the LIPI Press, if it was published, say, in 2018, the reviewers may come back recommending updates and changes, and you as an author or an editor really need to be on board with that process in implementing the changes recommended by Springer's external reviewers. So it's not simply a case of putting forward your manuscript and it being republished. If it was published in English originally, there may be subsequent changes required for the Springer published version. Once the peer reviewer reports have been submitted, we send them on to LIPI Press, and who will coordinate with you as the author. We invite you to make changes to the manuscript or proposal. And if this is all positive, we then look to issue the contract, move the book into production, which is about a 3 to 4 month process, sometimes a bit longer, depending on copy editing, permissions, etc. And then we jointly publish the book with, as I mentioned, both brands by LIPI and Springer. Next slide, please. And so this is a quick graphic which explains the whole process. All the way from, which I've just spoken through, the submission process of the proposal and draft manuscript, through the peer review process into, subsequent revisions, and the road to publication in ebook and print. Of course, the journey doesn't stop there, and part of what we do on the Springer side and jointly with LIPI Press is to ensure that the book is sent out to journals, to invite book reviews, ordinarily showcased at conferences when conferences in person were still a thing, and yeah, working with you to ensure that the book reaches as wide a readership as possible. A big part of what we do is also engage search engine optimization in terms of the metadata placement for books, crafting titles and book chapters, to ensure that the book has the highest visibility possible. So next slide, please. I am running slightly over time. What makes a title suitable for co-publication is one of the most common questions we get at LIPI Press and at Springer. Of course, on the Springer side, we're looking for something that makes a novel contribution to existing literature. As part of the proposal, we ask you to define unique selling points for the book, why this book will make a contribution to existing literature, expand on what has been written previously, and contribute to the field moving forward. We're obviously looking for books that have a regional or international appeal and readership potential. This is not to say, as the previously co-published books show, that the research can't be locally oriented, have an Indonesian focus, but ultimately it needs to have a applicability to the field beyond Indonesia. That's what we're looking for. As I mentioned, there needs to be a willingness to work through translation, the translation process, and to any updates to the original title following Springer's peer review process. So it really requires that you are actively involved, working together with Novia and the team at LIPI Press to make the amendments needed. As I mentioned, we expanded the original scope of titles accepted from titles that were originally written in Bahasa Indonesia and translated to also include recent English titles published under LIPI Press that could have a broader appeal under Springer's international distribution model. And we also want you to have a very clearly defined audience. We often get proposals that say they're going to target undergraduates, postgraduates, scholars, and interested laymen. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You need to have a very clear indication of who your target readership is. I'm then going to run through, next slide, please. A few quick do's and don'ts before wrapping up on what to consider when you're submitting a book proposal. Please do research both LIPI Press and Springer's publishing list and look for what proposal materials we require. LIPI Press will be sending out an information booklet which includes the proposal form that we use in the humanities and social sciences, which gives an overview of all the supporting documents you need. Please ensure that your proposal is proofread and as clean as possible when it is submitted, and that it is as detailed as possible. We always require at proposal stage 1 or 2 sample chapters, as well as a table of contents with supporting abstracts per chapter of around 300 words per chapter. We do have a lot of queries if we are joined today by any PhD students on submitting the dissertation. Ramesh will reiterate this, that we do not publish dissertations. However, we will consider proposals that for books that are based off dissertation, off the thesis, that this will require substantial rewriting and revision. Included in the information leaflet we'll be sending out today are some pointers on what to consider if you are looking to revise your dissertation into a monograph. So please don't also submit your proposal to numerous editors. Please, well, in the case of humanities and social sciences, it would be myself and also Novia. We want to keep both LIPI Press and Springer involved in the conversation all the way through. But if you are submitting to Springer generally, target the most relevant editor and keep the conversation with that editor throughout the process. Again, don't submit the dissertation as a proposal. Be specific when you're crafting your title and subtitle. Focus on the keywords that will increase discoverability and search engine optimization, especially in the humanities. I think we like to be quite creative in our titles, but ultimately you want the keywords on your research to be as well, the keywords that highlight what your research is about to be as detailed and specific as possible in terms of how researchers are inputting that data in the search engines when they're looking for books or for research in their area. So don't be abstract and obtuse. And yeah, try and get your title bedded down as soon as possible. And it's also worth stating within the LIPI Press and Springer co-publishing agreements that we usually revise the title. So the title that it may be published under at LIPI Press, the Springer title may be different, obviously, when it's a translated work from Bahasa Indonesia. Next slide, please. Do aim to grab the reader's attention and look to answer the following questions in your proposal. What is the book about? How is it distinctive? What does it offer that other books don't? And what needs does it need to satisfy? Please don't assume subject specialist knowledge on the part of the editor. Myself as an editor covering all of humanities and social sciences disciplines, and Ramesh covering a very broad science list. Yes, you need to be able to explain it in a way that will make sense beyond your unique research area. So be concise in your synopsis of the book when you approach Springer and LIPI Press. Be detailed in your table of contents. We really want to have a good overview of how each chapter is going to be planned. And again, I've already mentioned, please never restate the chapter outline of your dissertation. Next slide, please. Please evaluate the markets and competition. A common mistake when I receive book proposals is to say there is no competition. This is a mistake, as it could be construed or misconstrued as there is no market. So even if the book is not crossing into the exact same territory as a competing title or a complementary title, please mention the key titles in the market that have informed your work to date. Don't assume that there's a general audience who will be interested in your proposal. Most monographs are for an academic audience. And again, I'd like to reiterate here that what we're discussing for Springer is very much scholarly monographs that cater to mostly a postgraduate or research scholarly audience. So that's very important to note. It's not to say that we can't position the book to appeal to other groups such as policymakers, but ultimately the bulk of our readership is concentrated in universities and institutions. So look at the market from the publisher's perspective, make it clear how your proposal relates to competing and complementary books, and also how it differs. Provide evidence of the interest in your field and include academic and professional associations. Include your CV when you submit the proposal to LIPI and to Springer, and do include existing books from the publisher. So it also helps to sometimes say, I've looked at what LIPI Press is publishing and what Springer is publishing, and I feel that my book, my research proposal for a book will be suitable to your publishing list. Lastly, next slide, please. Be realistic about the submission date and expected word count. As I mentioned, most of our books that we're publishing are upward of 90,000 words. We do accept shorter titles through the LIPI Springer co-publishing agreement. We have published books around 75,000 to 80,000 words. We ask you to set your deadline and work to your own timeline according to your other commitments. So be realistic in terms of your timeline for submission. Please show an awareness about copyright and permissions. If you're using third-party material, such as photographs, the onus is on you as the author to get the permissions cleared for that, but both the LIPI Press and myself at Springer will guide you through that process. We also invite you to suggest reviewers as part of the submission process of your book proposal, but please do recommend reviewers that, well, firstly, are not from the same institution, because we won't add them to our list in that case. But yeah, I always say recommend reviewers who know your subject and anticipated markets, and who are likely to give you the best constructive criticism to make your book as good as it can possibly be. So be very judicious in who you recommend as reviewers. Never suggest close colleagues or PhD supervisors or examiners as peer reviewers. And in wrapping up, I just would like to touch on what Ibu Prati has already covered in terms of the new co-publishing titles. As mentioned at ISC in 2018, we have now signed an agreement that covers, well, I'm going to be reading the English translations of the titles: Gender and Science and Technology, Development Policy and Challenges in Indonesia. We're also publishing a book which is currently, well, in the final stages of development: Electrical Access and Population Welfare in Indonesia. We're publishing another title which is still under translation: Female Political Leaders in the Local Oligarchy Network. Another research or gender-based title, Research and Gender Mainstreaming. On other title, also currently undergoing translation, is Disunity and Solidarity amongst Indonesian Islamic Parties. Most of these titles will probably be reworked as the manuscript is submitted. Asian Maritime Safety in the Perspective of Economics and Politics in Indonesia, which is currently under review. And lastly, last but not least, the Vulnerability Index in Indonesia. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the new catalogue under LIPI Press in moving forward, in discussing new titles for co-publication and translation or co-publication from English in the Indonesian markets to that have potential for international distribution under Springer. And any questions, my email is included in the leaflets that I've sent. Please drop me an email and Novia an email as well if you have any questions regarding the proposal process. And I'm sorry I'm slightly over time, but terima kasih and looking forward to the Q&A session.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex, for your very detailed explanation. Thank you for explaining some important things here, because during my, I'm handling the cooperation between LIPI and Springer, I got a lot of questions, like most frequently asked questions, and you have touched most of the questions, so thank you very much. And yeah, so it's interesting to see that that actually between LIPI and also Springer, we have a very similar, steps and publication, like starting from the manuscript until it's published. I think it's quite similar between LIPI and also Springer. And I think mostly our co-published book is mostly in the form of monograph and edited volume, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, for the catalog, we are now preparing. We are dividing between the science and also social humanities sciences.
Great.
Yeah, I'll send you later.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also that when you point out one thing, don't submit dissertation. I think that's, yeah, because we receive a lot of manuscripts still in the form of thesis or dissertation, and most of the time when we receive in that format, we send it back to the author,
yeah,
for them to reformat into a book format.
Thanks. Okay. Yeah, I think Ramesh will reiterate that. And in the guidelines that we're sending out, there is a 3-4 page document there on some, as I mentioned, tips to consider in revising the dissertation into a monograph. Apologies again, I'm over time, but thank you very much.
Yeah, it's okay. And so Bapak Ibu, nanti di akhir sesi atau mungkin di tengah-tengah sesi, kami akan membagikan tautan untuk materi dari presentasi hari ini. Jadi termasuk tadi sudah disiapkan oleh Alex, itu satu PDF yang berisi book proposal, karena ada beberapa pertanyaan yang terkait dengan book proposalnya itu seperti apa. Nah, ini sudah disiapkan, nanti Bapak Ibu bisa langsung melihat di tautan materi yang akan kami bagikan. Kemudian saya ingin menyapa untuk Bapak Ibu yang baru saja bergabung di Zoom room. We got 289 participants until now. Ya, and silahkan jika ingin menuliskan pertanyaan bisa dituliskan di Q&A. Tuliskan nama. Mohon maaf tadi saya belum memberikan ini ya format untuk pengajuan pertanyaan. Jadi bisa dituliskan nama Bapak Ibu, kemudian asal institusi dan ditujukan kepada siapa kira-kira pertanyaannya. Okay. And I know that you have been so curious and have a lot of things to ask to our speakers here, but hold on. We still have our third speaker here, Mr. Ramesh Remna. And Mr. Ramesh will talk about the publishing and Springer's science program. So as mentioned before, we do have cooperation and between LIPI and Springer in the field of humanities, and social science. And we expect to expand our cooperation in other fields, including the science program. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Ramesh to you. Mr. Ramesh is a publishing editor in applied sciences in Springer. He is in charge of developing publishing programs regionally in Australasia and Southeast Asia. And his session will present an overview of Springer's science publishing programs, as well as Springer Nature's publishing products, and then opportunities for potential authors to publish with Springer and other useful tools for users. And here we already have Mr. Ramesh. Good morning, Mr. Ramesh.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
How are you doing? Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. Yeah, I
How are
don't think
you?
I've tested my mic yet. Yeah, I'm good. I'm very good.
Okay.
It's nice
So,
to see everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So you will do your own share slides? You will
Yes,
share
yes,
your
I will.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, I will.
So
So I hit
Mr.
the share screen. Yeah.
You already have
Let me
the
try
access
this.
to do the share screen, right? Yeah, you can try.
Yeah, you can try it now. Yeah. All right. So.
Mr. Ramesh, you have around 40 minutes to present.
Okay, 40 minutes. All right. Okay. So let's see. Share. Okay. And I should start my presentation. Okay, can you all see my first introductory slide?
Yes.
Yes, you can. Okay, so thank you very much, LIPI, for organizing this wonderful forum. I was thinking that, you know, I've worked with Springer quite a while, since 2012. And I was looking through my old emails and I realized that I have been to LIPI before in 2013. And I also met Dr. Handoko during that time. So I went to LIPI, I gave an author workshop. Maybe you guys can look at your old photographs in May 2013. So I gave an
We'll
author
try to
workshop.
find it out.
Yeah. So yeah, it's 7 years ago. So it's quite a while. But it's nice to know because I saw Dr. Handoko and I realized like, wow, you know, I've met him before and we had lunch actually together. And with my sales colleagues, James Mercer and Bin Walters from that time. So it's nice to be back and to talk to the researchers in LIPI. So I realized after looking at Alex's presentation that Alex really has gone very deep into the area of books, you know, how to publish books with Springer, the process of doing it, especially this agreement that Springer and LIPI has. So that area of it is very defined, and I think Alex has put in a lot of effort in the last half an hour in her talk, defining. And I don't want to repeat whatever she said, you know. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to show 2 slides on the applied science program in Springer. And then I will jump right into how do you structure and how do you write a journal article? Because I think that's always a very interesting topic for early researchers. Maybe some senior researchers already publish many journal articles, but it's also very good as a refresher because this is a very structured format. So let me start off by first giving you this snapshot. So this is the springer.com website. You can see that we publish mainly books and journals. We also have other products as well that we have been introduced in the past 2 years, which I would like to go through at the end. But I would like to point out in this slide, the below part where you see the different subject areas that Springer work in. You know, we have books and journals in different areas such as astronomy, behavioral science, engineering, environmental science, you know, law, HSS, human sciences, you know, and we have books and journals in a huge spectrum. But the areas that I cover is in the area, or I would call the Applied Sciences Publishing Program, is listed over here, where I cover areas like chemistry, engineering, energy, material science, water, earth science, climate, environmental, geography. So it's a very huge spectrum. And you can see that I've also listed the number of journals, the number of books that we have, and the number of book series as well. And you can see that the applied science regime basically covers, about a third of Springer's program in terms of journals and books. So just to show you, this is what I cover as an applied science editor. I'm actually a book editor, just like Alex, but I cover the engineering and the applied science area. So I understand LIPI does a lot of work in that area, and through this co-pub agreement that Springer and LIPI has, hopefully we can also start to have books in the applied science area. So I'm really looking forward. Yeah, so I think that's my part on the science program. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump 2 feet into journals. So journal publishing is something that is bread and butter for most applied science field. And me myself, I used to be a researcher myself. I have a PhD in material science, and after that I did a postdoc for 4 years in the US and also in Singapore. And then when I joined Springer, I was also managing a journal program as well. So these are some of the wisdom and thoughts that I have, and that's accumulated by by my colleagues in Springer. And hopefully I can give you a very nice overview of the of what entails in writing a journal article. So I will try to make sure that I stay in time. So I hope to be done by 10:15. I think that's probably my time limit. So hang in there, and hopefully I impart some good knowledge to you. So for journal articles, you should always think in the point of a journal editor. What do the journal editor want? And he wants to make sure that his journal contains papers which have good quality science. And what does that mean? It means that papers that will stand up to peer review, papers which is original research. Of course, it will be interesting to the journal's readership, so that they would like the journal to be more appreciated by the readers. And also, of course, being an active research area where you will generate many citations, and last and not least, clear and concise writing. I think that's also the key, most important part of journal article writing. And the other thing that you need to consider as well is the journal selection. I think the last time I saw the figure, there are about 30,000 journals, academic journals out there. So choosing the right journal for your journal article can be quite a daunting process. So there are a few things that you need to consider as you go along, choosing the correct journal for your article, and then that's where you start writing the article. You must first select the journal before you start writing the article. So first question you should ask yourself, should you choose the journal with the highest impact factor? Is that the most correct approach? It's not necessarily. Why is that so? Because you should choose a journal that would best reach your target audience. You want people who are interested in your research work to be reading your paper. So don't choose the journal with the highest impact factor. Choose a journal which is most suitable for the impact of your field. And where are the findings relevant? Would you like to publish a journal which has an international outreach or worldwide outreach? Or you want something locally? Like, for example, if you are working in a field that's mostly interesting within the region, would you rather publish in a regional journal, or would you publish in a international journal, which it might be diluted with the other papers in there and get lost. So these are the things that you have to consider. Also, this is for your target audience. From whom are the findings important to? Like, for example, if it is research work whereby only people within your field would be interested in, then maybe you should consider choosing a specialized journal. Or it is a feed, or your research finding is something that will be very broad. You know, for example, if you are working in the field of material science, and you find that this will have a very nice appeal towards the mechanical engineers or maybe the electrical engineers. So you should find a journal that have broad enough sense that will cater to readers from those areas as well. And also accessibility is also important. How much outreach do you want to have? And accessibility is described by the business model of the journal. So you have the subscription business model where academics, most of them have the access to your journal because their library pays for subscription, or you think their research should be open access and be freely available to everybody in the world. Maybe it's something that's really have a much broader sense appeal to most people. So as I mentioned, journal selection is very important even before you start writing your article. So these are the most important things that you need to look into, like for example, the main focus of your work, aims and scope, who will be interested in your research work, and the significance of your results, that means the impact. And another thing which is, for me personally, when I was also writing my own journal article, another way I can decide on which journal to submit my article to is basically where have these similar articles, where do you find them? Which journal do you find them? So if you find that you're always reading a certain journal and there's certain articles coming out from that journal, so maybe you should consider submitting your journal article to that journal. Yeah, so that's also one way of choosing or selecting the correct journal for your article. There are also tools out there to help you. Like for example, there's this Springer Journal Suggester where you can key in your manuscript title and your manuscript text, and it does some kind of AI algorithm back-end work that will actually kind of choose a journal maybe suitable for your article. So this is also one way. I think Springer has one, but there's also other generic tools out there that you may use. All right, so let's get into structuring your manuscript. So I'm sure many of y'all, I hope many of y'all have heard the Imrat model. Imrat model is basically an acronym, or IMRAT is an acronym for introduction, methods, results, and discussion, IMRAT. But this is an old model. Now there's an expanded model where you have to include things like title of the journal article, abstract, keywords, and in addition, references and acknowledgements as well. So this is a nice model that you can adopt when you're preparing your journal article. And I have to say that this varies from journal to journal, subject area to subject area. Like life science or medicine, they may have a different structure in their journal article. They may not follow the IMRAT, or the human sciences also may not have this model as well, or it may not apply. So please take this as something that you can adapt to what is required for your journal. And usually structuring a manuscript is like telling a story. So the approach would be like once upon a time. You are telling a story where you have the beginning of a story, the middle portion of a story, and the end. Please remember this part because I'm going to reiterate this this flow of once upon a time of telling a story from beginning, middle, and end. And this will be applied in the different subsections, as you can see in the Imrat model of how you should be writing your sections. So writing order. So what you ask yourself, which section do you write first? Do you write the introduction chapter first? Do you write the conclusion chapters first of the article? Do you write maybe the discussion, the results? You know, so which section do you write? Maybe I can give you 5 seconds to think about it before I flash the answer. All right. So the most logical way, which I found out myself as well, is the first thing you do is you write the methods and results. This is easy because this can be written during research. That means while you are in your lab or while you are conducting, for example, a survey, you know, for your research work, or you are conducting certain experiments or running a computational program or simulation program. This is the best time for you. When there's a downtime, you can sit down and write the methods and results of your journal article. This is followed by the introduction and discussion. And this you write after you select your target journal. So it's important for you to know which journal are you going to submit your paper to. And then lastly, what you should be writing is the title and the abstract. I hope this makes sense to everyone. Okay. So let's jump into title. The importance of your title. So your title is really important because, as you know, if you guys have done journal article research before, where you go through the databases and everything. So the titles of it is very important because of 3 things. First, it grabs the reader's attention. Someone reads the titles like, oh, I know this title is interesting to me, and I want to download the article. Second, it introduces your manuscript to the journal editor. And thirdly, which is very important as well, is label for indexing. Indexing is for all the Web of Science, Scopus, and things like this. Title is very important. You must have important keywords that will be very suitable and very appropriate for your journal article. So in your title, you need to convey the main topics of your manuscript, be specific and concise, and avoid jargons, abbreviations, and acronyms. This is very, very important. I know sometimes there's a tendency to make the title very attractive, very abstract, but you need to also be practical about it. So I like to have a example over here of a poor title and a good title. So you can see for this is a poor title. Why? Because it's too long. Look at it. It looks like a whole idea or 3 or 4 ideas put together, like you're trying to describe the article too much. So what you can do is you can remove all the unnecessary details that can be included into the manuscript itself. Maybe do a switch around of words. And then you have a much better title where it just describes the main gist of what your article is in probably less than 15 words. I think there's also some guidelines for the number of characters in your title. Maybe you can have it, maybe 150 characters or less, or 200 characters and less. Don't make it too long. Next, I'll talk about abstract. Abstract is also very important because it's when readers will read the title, and then when they find that interesting enough, they will look into the abstract before they actually decide to download the paper or purchase the paper. So many times is a majority of readers will only read this section. So therefore, an abstract must be a standalone. In what sense? You must give a very accurate summary of your research and conclusions. And Sometimes title, abstracts need to be structured or unstructured. I think in most medical journals, abstract need to be structured, but the other fields may not be. So you should always look for guide for authors in the journal you're submitting to for the specific requirements. So a good abstract should be brief. It should state the objective and scope of the study, briefly describe the methods employed, summarize the results very briefly, and state the principal conclusions. This is difficult. There are some journals that only allow you a certain amount of characters or certain amount of words for the abstract. So, you can spend a very long time writing and rewriting because you have to really try to fulfill all these requirements within the limited space that you have. And you have to understand that people, nowadays, there are so many journal articles out there. There are 30,000 journals. I believe also about 2 million articles are published every year. New articles are being published every year. So you have to understand that your readers have a mammoth number of information to go through in the databases. They're looking through all these different journal articles when they're doing their search. So you must make sure that your abstract does not contain unnecessary information, too much information, but must be brief and also contains enough information for them to understand what your article is about. Keywords. Keywords is really important because keywords, title, help to index your journal article in databases. So these are basically like, what's the word? The links or hyperlinks that is associated to your article. Like, for example, if you search a certain keyword and you are hoping that these are the keywords that will hopefully land your journal article, at least in the first page of the search, when readers are looking through. So you should make sure that you use appropriate keywords for indexing purposes, which translate to citations. If readers don't find your article, they cannot read your article and they cannot cite it. If you need to know a list of established keywords or terms, you can always go to these two different databases, MASH and PACS. You can go and look at it as well. But most of the time, I think you should be able to come up with a list of keywords on your own. Avoid general terms, and maybe some journals do not allow keywords in the title. So you cannot repeat keywords. Like if you have certain words already in a title, you cannot repeat the same words in the keywords, the list of keywords that you have for your journal. So just for example, if you have an article with this title, Direct Observation of Non-Linear Optics in an Isolated Carbon Nanotube, and you come out with a list of keywords like this, which is molecule, optics, laser, energy. This is poor. This is really, really poor because it's too general. Because if someone types the word molecule, can you imagine molecule? You will find tons and tons of papers and websites and blogs and things like that. You'll be drowned in all the information. So you need to come up with more precise keywords for your journal article. Like, for example, another way of think about it is you shouldn't have a single word keyword. You must have like multiple, like maybe 2 or 3 words as a form of a keyword. Like, for example, over here, instead of molecule, they have single molecule interaction, or they have a Kerr effect. They have carbon nanotubes, energy level structure. So these are probably a list of keywords that will link directly to your article. Okay, so I've gone through the first 3 sections of your journal article, the title, the abstract, and the keywords. So when your reader is reading an article, there are 4 questions that they will ask themselves. Why did you do this study? How did you go about doing it? What did you find? And so what does this study do to advance the field? So if you look at these 4 different questions, they basically fit into the different sections. For example, why did you do the study? This will be answered in your introduction section. How did you go about doing it? This will be fitted into your method section. What did you find? This will be in your results section. And so what does this study do to advance the field? This will be in your discussion section. I hope this makes sense. So let's start with the introduction section. Why does this study need to be done? So over here, how you can basically write the flow of the introduction is you can do an inverted triangle where it's broad on top and it narrows down to the specific field. So first you introduce the topic, you give it a very global or regional take on this topic and give it a very broad and specialized audience. This is to broadly address the research area. And then you slowly kind of zoom in about what is known about the topic, the up-to-date studies, you cite broadly. This is very important to cite the important papers. You mustn't miss out papers that have been doing this work. It's important because your reviewers will catch it actually. They will let you know that you forgot to cite this paper. And then you zoom into what is not known. That means the clear description of your problem, and you can use things or keywords like however and things like this. So you can see how the introductory chapter comes in as it zooms into the aim of the work. Yes, and you talk about the specific aims of what you're trying to achieve in this journal article. So as I mentioned that I would always like to use the approach of storytelling once upon a time. So we can also do that in the introduction chapter. So first is introduction is why, right? Why is this problem being studied? So this answer of this question should be contained within your introduction chapter using the beginning, middle, and end approach. So in the beginning, in a broad sense, provide background information to your work, put it into context. Please do not write a comprehensive literature review of the field. You may put it in your PhD work, but not in a journal article. As I mentioned, journal articles are basically very limited space. And what you can do is instead of writing extensively, you can cite reviews. You can write a certain statement, and then you can cite certain papers that readers can refer to if they want more information. And then in the middle, so beginning, middle, the middle is the rationale, the reason of your study. You should explain the problem in 1 or 2 sentences. Be mindful not to state results from your study, because right now you're just giving an introductory perspective. The results can be talked about later on. And then at the end, you state clearly the aims of your study. This is also where you state the methods that you will use to carry out your aims. Like it depends on your, as I mentioned, I'm talking very generically, but if you are in the social sciences, you might be talking about the different surveys that you have done, the questionnaire, how was it carried out, a group of people, the targeted audience, or if you're doing a research in an engineering sense, you talk about your lab, the equipment that was used, the boundary conditions, things like this that you should be talking about. And then you should also ask yourself in your introductory chapters, the citations, are you citing the right papers? Are you citing the current papers, the relevant papers, things like this? So the next section is the methods. How did you go about doing your experiment? It's important in the sense that you actually give the researchers in your field enough information to reproduce your findings and hopefully build on your research. I think that's the best thing that I feel, if I feel that someone is actually using my research and applying it for something, like for example, I'm not doing research anymore, but during my time as a researcher, if someone is doing that right now, it'll be a great feeling for me. So it's very important to be able to give enough information so that researchers can reproduce your findings and build on your research. And also for peer reviewers to understand what you have done, to evaluate your study design and validate your results, to make sure that they understand and know what is being carried out. So for methods, what do they need to know? For example, this is trying to be as generic as I can because I know I'm talking to a very broad audience right now. Who or what was used in the study? Like for example, what samples did you use in the field of life science or chemistry? And materials, where was it purchased? Sometimes you need to give the lot number, the serial number, and how did you conduct the study, the methods, techniques. You have to also discuss certain boundary conditions, specific condition, controls of the study. And then lastly, how did you analyze your data? So it's very important to have all this information, methods, software. If you are using some kind of stats, fitting to explain your results later on, you should also explain over here what kind of software, what kind of conditions was used. How do you present this? I think you can use clear subheadings to make sure that it's very clear. You should describe methods in past tense. I think grammar is important when you write the different sections. So for the materials and methods section, it should be described in past tense. If you're employing certain new methods that has not been used previously by other research groups, you may choose to describe in more detail. If it's very established, you can just cite the other paper that describes in more detail so that you free up space. And of course, you must also describe the statistical test used. So now that I've covered the method section, I will go into the result section. Result section, obviously, it basically is a section where you assemble your findings in a logical manner to make your story. So you should also have this approach of beginning, middle, and end. For result section, it's the same thing as the methods. Use subheadings, use past tense to describe the results, because past tense, the results was obtained during the time when you're doing experiment, so it was in the past, so it's past tense. And also this is when you use figures and tables to describe your findings. So use that in present tense. Present facts. Do not discuss your results. Your discussion of your results will be done in the discussion section. And do not duplicate data among the tables, figures, and text. That means do not copy and paste the same sentence from the figures and then put it into your text. And I think that would be redundant. And also include any statistical and analysis. That's very important. I think it's been said many times over here because, as I said, peer reviewers want to know what you have done, and your other researchers also want to know what you have done, so they can also employ your research or advance your study. So you can guide your readers through your findings. So you can have what you call a logical presentation. So this is just an example. Like for example, you can talk about the initial observation, the characterization, and also the application of your findings. Just an example, observation, you fabricated a new membrane for water treatment. This is of course related to the membrane technology regime. So I'm so sorry if you're not, but this is just an example. So observation is you have fabricated a new membrane for water treatment. You have characterized the physical and chemical properties, you know, under the different temperatures and pressures and things like that. And from there, you think that there's an efficiency in removing certain contamination. So it follows this kind of logical presentation: initial observation, characterization, and then potential application. Just to talk about display tables and figures, which is very important because, as you know, as they say, picture paints 1,000 words. So you should always put a lot of effort in this. So you need to make it very effective. Sometimes you have to think about different ways in which you should be presenting the data. Obviously, this comes with a lot of practice. I think there's a lot of resources online as well, teaching us on how to present data, some guidelines as well. You can look into that. I can't explain too much over here. You should keep it simple. Use separate panels if necessary if the data is too complicating. As I mentioned, avoid duplication with text. That means whatever you have in your caption, do not copy and paste and put it in text. It's very redundant. Label, of course, all your figures. People want to understand your figure. Use trend lines, scale bars, statistical significance. And also the legends must be standalone. Like sometimes when you read journal articles, I'm sure many of you all have, sometimes you just download the figure. You download the figure and then with the caption itself, you are able to understand what this figure or what this very important finding is about, even without reading the main paper. Yeah, so sometimes that's what you want. You want your figure tables to be standalone. So just an example of a display table. You can see that this nice caption describing what has been done in this experiment using a certain type of objective lens and different concentrations of acid and very clear, concise caption and legend as well. You can see that data is divided into different concentration of the acid, so it's very clear. It's very clear approach. So this you might try to present your data in a few different ways, and sometimes it's also good to discuss this with senior researchers who are very in tune with how data should be shown. Of course, abbreviations must be defined below. As you use abbreviations on top, you should always define it below. Another one, so this one basically uses a multi-panel, because if you superimpose all this data in a single graph, I think it's going to be really complicating. So in this case, they divide it into 3 different panels, so you can compare them side by side. And then you have a clear standalone legend describing very nicely what the different lines are about, like the red line, the black line, and the dotted line. So I don't really understand this. This is in geoscience, I believe, the Arab Journal of Geoscience. But if I look and read the legend and I compare the results, I kind of roughly know what kind of what are they trying to explain here. As you can see that the data is separated to smaller, simpler components so that it's easier to see, and you must make sure that your axes are clearly labeled and the fonts are big enough. I think that's also one of the major problems that we find. Okay, so now that you have presented your discussion, your results, I'm slowly now jumping into discussion. I'm checking the time, and I think I have another 10 minutes to wrap up very quickly. So for discussion is basically, what does your study mean for the field? So what I can do, how the approach we can do over here is for the discussion section, we have this triangle, upright triangle methods, whereby you have a very narrow scope in your discussion, talking about the specific topic you have done, and then it goes down to the broader sense of what does this field findings imply in the field, and what kind of like maybe potential applications and things like this. So first you summarize what you did, begin with the research problem, you can briefly describe the study design and summarize the key findings. And then this is when you interpret your findings. You know, you find the similarities and differences, the maybe unexpected or negative results, and the limitations of your findings. That's very important because you should define it very clearly. If not, the peer reviewers will do it for you, and that's not a good situation to be in. And of course, you should also write about why is this important to the field. Or you have a main conclusions and the implications of your research work. So same thing for the discussion section. You can answer to this question and discussion using the story method, once upon a time, where you have a beginning, middle, and end. So discussion section is actually, in my opinion, is the most difficult section for authors to write, because this basically kind of summarizes and is the main essence of what this journal article is about. Some readers, maybe they read just the abstract, the introduction, and they just jump right straight to the discussion section. They do not read the methods, nothing, you know, or the findings. They just want to know the gist, the essence of what your research is about. So you must present principles, relationship, you know, and comparisons in your results section. It's very important. You can summarize and discuss your results, but do not repeat your results, or your finding, because as I said, summarizing is already done in the finding section. So now it's all about discussion. And also use a past tense when you describe results and present tense to describe your implications. Yeah, it's very complicating, but as you are writing the article, you will understand why is this important. In your discussion section, you need to be humble. You know, don't write like this is. I think a lot of writers tend to write like novel, use the word novel and things like this. I think you need to be humble because most of our time, our research is done basically as an advanced study of a certain research topic already. So you shouldn't overstate the importance of your results. So you can write, you can start things like our findings prove that, or our findings show that, you know, things like that, or findings suggest that, you know, have a more humble approach. So in the discussion section, as I mentioned at the beginning, maybe first you can answer the research question, you know, the triangle method, and then you provide the major and main result first, and then you give your conclusion based on the results for the beginnings part. And then when you go in the middle part is where you take each result and you discuss it. So you first interpret the results and one paragraph per idea, like to talk about what does your observation or results imply in the research that you have done. Are there results from previous studies relevant to your work? So you should also compare, like maybe another research group has done very similar experiments, but in a different method. You know, you should also compare the results. So compare with others, whether it's the same or different, and why. Why is it same or why is it different? You should also talk about that. You should also try to present ambiguous result and discrepancy objectively. You know, if you do not do that, the peer reviewer will definitely be able to spot it, because they are experts in your field. They have been in the field long enough, and they understand what this is about. So this is also an opportunity for you to explain certain unexpected findings to your best ability. As I mentioned, describe limitation, because if you don't, the reviewers will. And at the end of your discussion, you should reiterate your conclusions of your study. Like for example, you can have in summary or in conclusion. Then it's a good time for you to mention applications, implications, speculations, if you think it is appropriate. And it's also a good time for you to suggest future work, so to say that, there are certain limitations in my study. So maybe for future work, we should be doing the experiment this way. Yeah, so that's the best way forward. So now I've gone through the whole process of structuring your manuscript. As you see, there is like this hourglass kind of shape, whereby you answer 4 key questions for your readers. Why is this study needs to be done? How you went about doing it? What you found? And so what does this mean for the field? As you can see that this 4 question is related to the different topics or subsections in the structure of your journal article, and how these things link to the different sections of your manuscript. Like for example, the objectives, when you're stating objectives, is actually linked with the problem of the field. You can see there's a flow. And then the results and the figures is linked to the objectives as well, as you specify what do you want to achieve in your study. And then the implications of the field is linked up to the problem that you state in your article. So you should have this kind of logically linking up the papers to have a very nice approach and flow in your journal article. References are important. I think nowadays we are using reference management softwares like RefWorks, Mendeley, and Note. So I think these things are mostly automated. If you're not using it, please look into it. I think it's really, really useful tool that I used when I was a graduate student, or I was a researcher as well. So we looked into finding an appropriate journal for your article. We looked into logically organizing the manuscript, and now you are ready to submit. So maybe in the next 2 minutes, as I see I've ran out of time. In the next 2 or 3 minutes, I just want to cover 3 more topics. One I'm going to talk about is cover letters. So cover letters is very important. Why? Because it's competition to get the attention of the journal editor. So you can imagine some popular journals, they get maybe 50 submissions a day. So you need a very attractive cover letter to get their attention. And it is not enough to send a cover letter like this. Dear editor, I'm sending you a manuscript entitled XYZ. We'd like you to consider this manuscript in your journal. I think this is not enough. You need to be more, you need to address your cover letter personally to the editor. You need to state your manuscript title and publication type. You need to give more information, where you need to give a brief background, rationale, description of your results. You need to explain your findings and how they would be interesting to the journal's target audience, which is what the journal editor is interested in. He wants to publish interesting articles to increase the readership of his journals. So you need to design your cover letter as such. So just an example. This is just an example of a cover letter. You can see that the author has given a very nice background to the research. He has described what was done and what was found. And then he also states why should this article be interesting to the journal readers. And he also mentioned that it conforms to the journal requirements, which is very important. Okay. So the last section I'm talking about is the peer review. So many papers are accepted without being without the need of any revisions. So usually these are the 4 different type of response that you get from a journal editor. First is complete rejection. Second is major revisions, minor revision, acceptance. For me, acceptance is very, 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 very rare. Minor revision is good news. Major revision is a little bit of a bummer, but okay, still have chance. You know, we still can do some improvements. Complete rejection, oh, it's bad. Yeah. So you need to understand that. So these are the summaries of things that we have accumulated on why there's rejection, you know, complete rejection. So you can see the list over here, you know, contradiction within the manuscript, superficial rambling, inconsistent use. So it's basically a very poorly written article that didn't really follow the flow or the methods that I showed you before. And also for peer review, what do reviewers look for? You know, whether this manuscript is novel or and the significance of this manuscript versus the aims and scope and impact factor of the journal. You know, you as the writer should always evaluate your research work to make sure that the impact of your study matches with the impact factor of the journal in that sense as well. So these are the list of questionnaire that we usually send to our reviewers who review manuscripts. So you can look over here. You can see that these are the questions that reviewers have to answer to us when we send an article to them to be reviewed. So this is great because as someone who needs to write an article, if you are able to address all these questions and help to make sure that you are able to address all this well, then I think your article should be in good shape for the reviewers to accept it. Hopefully with minor revisions and maybe with, you know, major revisions, but you still have a chance to work on the article. All right. Responding is also important when you the reviewer gives their comments. So be polite. You know, make it easy to see changes. If they suggest changes, make sure you do that. Refer to line, page numbers, use different color tones, highlight text. You know, this when you are responding to reviews, you must also be very cautious with it. I think there are many senior researchers that you can talk to who can guide you through this, and it's important for you to be able to respond well as well. Yeah. Okay. I think I would just end off the talk with this last thing because Dr. Handoko was talking about YouTube videos for LIPI. So I thought it's also a good opportunity for me to talk to you about this new video product that we have in Springer. So you heard that we publish books, we publish journals, but we also publish videos as well. So basically, these Springer videos is can be like a learning course or educational videos or a show and tell, you know, of a certain kind of work that you have done. Maybe you have published it in a research article or and things like that. So I think it's possible for you to also, in addition to publishing a journal, you can also publish a Springer Nature video. So it's just like books. You have to submit a video proposal to us to review. And then the videos should be divided into segments like book chapters. So instead of book chapters, you have Springer video segments. Video recording should be done by the authors, but you must need to conform to Springer's standard and guidelines. And once the video meets the guidelines, the processing is done by the in-house Springer Video Publishing Manager, which is done in-house. And finally, the video will be published at this link. So you can go and check it out, link springer.com/video. Yeah, I don't know if I am able to do a sharing. If you just give me a sec. Yeah, I think, yes. So this is the website for the Springer video. And if you scroll down, you can see, like, for example, this is the first video, the complete beginner's guide to search engine optimization, you know, and then we have different videos in the area of medicine, in areas of applied computing, business and management, and I'm also trying to acquire videos in my field, like you know, in signal processing, for example. I'm trying to get one. I'm trying to get something in the food science area. So this will be interesting. So if you have any video ideas, just drop me or Alex an email as well. Okay. So I think with that, I'm done with my presentation, and yeah. So thank you very much. Terima kasih. I learned Malay when I was young, since I grew up in Singapore, but I know Bahasa Indonesia is different from the Bahasa we learn, which is from Malaysia. But I hope to meet you guys soon, and thank you for your attention. Right, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Ramesh, for your very useful and very detailed explanation. I think it's interesting to see your presentation, because I think writing for a journal is what most of our researchers and academicians here need to do, because they are required to do that. And there is one thing that in your presentation you said that you do not always have to send your manuscript to a high impact factor journal with high impact factor, and because most of the writers here, they have the tendency to find the journal with high impact, and it's good to see that yeah, you need to to find the most suitable journal for your article. I think it's very useful tips, and what you have presented, the some tips to prepare the manuscript for a journal. I think it's quite similar also for the book manuscript also, because your tips on journal writing, they can be applied also for a book manuscript. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, here we already have a lot of questions. I think around 75 questions.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, from the question Q&A panel, and also chat, and we have tried to collect and select some of the question here. Okay, I think we have here first from Ibu Hartati from LIPI. I think this question is addressed to Ibu Prapti Sasiwi. I'll read the question. The first question is, apa yang membedakan penerbitan buku lewat mekanisme LIPI Press dan LIPI Springer? Apa ada kriteria tertentu untuk masing-masing? Silakan Ibu Prapti.
Ya, terima kasih Mbak Novi. Terkait mekanisme, sebetulnya sepertinya sama ya untuk LIPI Press dengan Springer. Cuma mungkin kalau ingin diterbitkan oleh Springer, Ibu harus melalui LIPI Press dulu. Jadi mungkin di LIPI Press naskah Ibu nanti akan ditelaah seperti biasa dan diproses penerbitannya oleh LIPI Press. Setelah itu nanti akan kami tawarkan ke Springer untuk dilihat lagi terkait kerjasama ini, apakah ini bisa untuk dikerjasamakan. Jika ya, nanti mungkin jika masih dalam bahasa Indonesia, kita perlu untuk mengalihbahasakan atau menerjemahkan, dan itu kami serahkan ke terkait anggaran, terkait biaya untuk menerjemahkan, kami serahkan ke penulis atau satuan kerja masing-masing, Ibu, karena tidak lagi tersedia di LIPI Press. Tapi kalau memang itu sudah bahasa Inggris, kita bisa langsung kirimkan ke Springer. Terkait apa tadi Mbak Novi ya?
Ini kriteria.
Saya rasa ya minimal itu harus lolos telaah dulu, karena di LIPI Press juga ada proses telaah gitu. Untuk persyaratan-persyaratan lainnya bisa dilihat di pedoman LIPI Press yang bisa diunduh di website LIPI Press. Itu Mbak Novi mungkin.
Baik, terima kasih. Nanti jika masih ada pertanyaan dari Ibu Hartati bisa disampaikan kembali di Q&A atau di chat ya, Bu ya. Kemudian another question is, I think I will choose like 3 or 5 questions for this first session. It's for Alex.
Yeah. Yes, Novi?
Yeah. So just a simple question. What are the main reasons that a book is rejected and not accepted publication in Springer?
Okay, great. Good question. We are very reliant on the peer review reports in evaluating a book proposal. Often it's not, it could be related to the book is too niche in focus. That is a common problem. As I touched on earlier, we often get books reworked from dissertations. Another common rejection is it reads too much like a dissertation and not enough like a monograph. Other factors that can be included is the structure of the book in relation to the target audience. For example, if it's a textbook, it's going to be used as a teaching resource, but maybe the structure of the book has not really been structured as such. Say talking points, exercises, that kind of thing. Quality of research is another, it can be a criticism in some book proposals. From my side, though, in the humanities and social sciences, I do a screening of a synopsis on a proposed book ahead of inviting a book proposal. So part of that process is also for me to evaluate whether the proposed book will fit my list. Proceedings, again, I mentioned we have a lot of proceedings, proposals, and in the humanities and social sciences, I do reject a lot of proceedings proposals. Maybe they're mostly papers that are coming from one institution, for example, or the aim is to, I mentioned previously that sometimes we reject books because they're too niche. By the same token, we can also reject books that are too broad. In the case of edited volumes, a very common criticism from reviewers is that there's a lack of cohesion in the chapters. The chapters are not organized in such a way that the chapters speak to each other or speak to a particular theme or an overarching question that the book is looking to address. So those are just some of the common criticisms we get, especially during the peer review process. I don't know if Ramesh wants to add to that from the sciences side on books.
Yeah, I think another of reason why I reject book proposals also, sometimes the book proposals, they come in, they are too niche, and sometimes you can see they are like 30 pages long. So you know that's too focused on certain topics. And usually we submit our book proposals to book series. So within Springer, we have many book series. So book series are basically like journals. You know, for journals, you have an editor-in-chief, and he looks into every journal article that's submitted. So a book series, you have a chief editor, and he looked into every new book proposal that's sent in. So if he feels that it doesn't fit into his series or it's not up to the quality needed, that's also the other reason. Sometimes also, most of the time, it's also a repeated title. Like maybe this book has been published many a times within Springer, and this scope has already been covered. So that's also the other thing that you need to consider. You should look into Springer's program. You know, go to springer.com and just type the title of the tentative book that you want to write, and then look at the different books already out there, and then you need to consider that and put it in your book proposal. Like, you know, you understand that there's this book in Springer that very similar title, but then you need to explain why is your book unique compared to this pre-existing book. As I said, I'm talking very generally because I'm talking to a very broad audience. So it applies to both human sciences, I'm guessing, and also to the science and engineering part. So these are the list of things that we do. Yeah.
To add to that, if I can, Ramesh and Novi, I didn't really go into the peer review process in any great detail on the book side of things, but usually we'll do 2 rounds of single blind review at the proposal stage, and then another 2 rounds at the manuscript submission stage. That's after the book is contracted. As Ramesh mentions, you know, we publish in series. In my program, I do a lot of standalone books as well, which are published outside of series. The review process for books that are in series are different because, as Ramesh mentions, the editorial board is involved. But in the Humanities and Social Sciences program, we always have at least 1 round of external review in addition to the editorial board review, even if it is published in a series. And in the cases where we have bipolar review reports, where one advocates publication and the second reviewer rejects it, we will always pursue a 3rd round of review with a different reviewer. So it's not uncommon, especially I think in the humanities, where it's often very opinionated. I mean, it's still grounded in theoretical or backed by theoretical research and theoretical grounding. But yes, we can have disparate reviewer reports, in which case we will then need to go to another round of review.
Okay, thank you very much for your explanation, Alex and Ramesh. And I think it's the same as what we have done here in LIPI Press also. Usually we also have blind review process, and then currently we only have like one reviewer for one manuscript. Sometimes when we have 2 reviewers and there are like a different review result, we have here we have an editorial board member, and we usually discuss that in our editorial board member meeting, and we decide about the status of the manuscript. And as what have been mentioned by Ramesh also, we also have the list of the revision. Like when an author receive a review result from LIPI Press, and then we send them the result, we also attach the revision list form, and we need the author to fill in the revision form. So in that way, we facilitate the author to explain which part that the author wants to accommodate, and what are the rest that they couldn't accommodate, and they usually provide the reasons why they don't do that. Okay, and
sorry, Novi, and the last thing on that, I didn't actually answer the specific to the LIPI Press Springer co-publishing agreement, which you will know a very common criticism is also that some data can be out of date. So this is the case if we're looking to publish maybe something that's been written in 2018, maybe it's something on the SDGs, but you know, policies have changed in the 2 years since the original text was published under LIPI Press, and then the reviewers on the Springer side said, well, that needs to be made current and updated. So that's something very important to consider.
But what I want to point out is that like in our previous case of our co-published book written by Miss Lydia, The 6 Decades, it's kind of it's quite a long process, because they need to update data, and from the review result there are some like many things that need to be revised, and then I asked the authors to like make the revision list, and that we like make a compromise which part that we can do and what we can accommodate, and like I send it to you to Springer, and yeah, finally the book is published. And oh, this is a question from Professor Karunia. Professor Karunia is our editor-chief, and his question is addressed to Mr. Ramesh. Two questions actually. The first one is, does the editor-in-chief play a role in refusing manuscript that has been accepted by the reviewers to be published? And the second one, is there any fee that to have be paid in advance before the manuscript reviewed by the peer reviewers?
So the first question is whether the editor-in-chief can overwrite the peer review comments. I think yes, because the editor-in-chief is basically the gatekeeper of the journal. And if the editor-in-chief inform us that there's something wrong with the journal manuscript, and he feels that the peer reviewer did not do a good job, we can definitely move forward and reject the article, the submission. But if he wants, I mean, we can also have it peer reviewed again. I mean, find a new set of reviewers to look into it and to make sure that the article is reviewed well, and make sure that it's in the right frame. The second question is about you mentioned about providing funding for the reviewers, or
yeah, is there any fee that have to be paid in advance before the manuscript review?
No. That shouldn't be the case. I mean, it depends on the business model of the journal, whether is it a subscription journal or is it an open access journal. But in both cases, even in the case of an open access journal, no article processing charge is requested until the journal article goes through the peer review and it has been accepted. Then the invoice is sent to the author. So we do not charge any money for the manuscript to be peer reviewed. In both cases, even for the subscription and the open access journals. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. And here we have another question from Ibu Endang Tri Margawati. It's addressed for Alec. What is more critical to be considered by Springer to be published? Subject or issue?
Subject or issue. By issue, could they clarify that? I mean, in terms of subjects, I can only speak from the humanities and social sciences side of things. I mean, we consider all disciplines. So issue, I'm not 100% sure what is meant by that. But I mean, ideally,
Maybe like the main topic that is discussed in that book.
Yeah, it's so broad. It's impossible to pinpoint one particular issue. But of course, Ramesh has touched on this. Competing literature is a really big plays a big factor, and it is a consideration that both us as publishing editors and that the reviewers will consider. So, as Ramesh said, if if the research is focusing on something that we've published extensively, then we're unlikely to be interested in it. So there, again, you don't want to make sweet, grandiose claims on making a completely novel contribution, but an awareness of what other books are out there is really important. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't pinpoint a specific issue. Of course, we do have stronger subject focus areas according to within our list. So you might find that certain published editors are very interested in publishing on issues of gender in their political science list, but ultimately you will find an editor that is interested in we work across all disciplines, as I say. So if I'm not the right editor for a proposal. If I don't think it's a fit for my program, then I will refer that prospective author to the relevant editor in the Springer context list.
Okay, and it's still from Ibu Endang. She asked about the translation process for the book and for publishing. So do the writer will be involved in translation? Maybe it's the question for us and LIPI Press, yeah.
I think so. Maybe you take that one.
Yeah. Okay, so Mbak Prapti mau menjawab?
Terkait apa, Novi, mohon maaf?
Penerjemahan buku untuk di co-publish. Apakah penulis ini juga dilibatkan dalam proses penerjemahannya?
Maksudnya dilibatkan itu nanti biasanya Bu setelah kami merekomendasikan penerjemah untuk menerjemahkan suatu buku, tapi mungkin seperti yang tadi saya sampaikan, anggaran kami serahkan ke penulis atau satuan kerja. Nanti setelah buku diterjemahkan, kami biasanya mengirimkan ke penulis untuk dilihat kembali apakah hasil dari terjemahan itu sudah sesuai dengan isi dari buku yang diterjemahkan. Namun jika mungkin penulis bisa menerjemahkan sendiri, sepertinya tidak masalah Mbak Novi ya, kalau misalkan penulisnya mau menerjemahkan sendiri. Cuma nanti kan kita kembalikan lagi ke Springer, karena dari Springer juga nanti akan menilai terkait penerjemahannya itu. Dan memang ada satu buku yang kemarin juga agak lama belum diterima juga karena memang hasil terjemahannya tidak sesuai dengan yang diinginkan oleh Springer itu. Mungkin Mbak Novi.
Baik, mungkin sedikit menambahkan ya Mbak Prap.
Ya, silakan.
Ya, jadi selama ini mungkin memang yang sering kita terima untuk naskah yang masuk ya, atau buku yang di co-publish itu sebagian besar masih dalam bentuk format bahasa Indonesia ya, jadi kami harus menerjemahkan. Nah, sebenarnya kami juga menerima buku dalam bentuk bahasa Inggris seperti yang sudah disampaikan oleh Alex tadi. Jadi ke depan memang kalau memang ada naskah yang memang sudah dalam bentuk bahasa Inggris, silahkan bisa dikirimkan ke LIPI Press ya. Jadi tidak perlu ada proses penerjemahan lagi kalau sudah dalam bentuk bahasa Inggris. Misalnya buku yang dari Pak Riwanto ini yang masuk ke tahap pertama, ini juga beliau menuliskannya dari awal memang sudah dalam bentuk bahasa Inggris. Jadi kami tidak perlu menerjemahkan. Tapi kalau untuk buku-buku yang dalam bentuk dalam format bahasa Indonesia, penerjemahan itu bisa tadi disampaikan ada dua. Jadi bisa diserahkan kepada penulis, hanya memang nanti kami perlu memverifikasi ya, verifikasi sebelum kami kirimkan ke Springer. Kemudian di Springer pun juga ada proses proofread, sama dengan di LIPI Press. Kemudian secara anggaran tadi sudah disampaikan, untuk tahun ini kami sudah tidak ada anggaran untuk penerjemahan, tapi kami bisa merekomendasikan penerjemah yang bisa membantu menerjemahkan buku Bapak Ibu untuk proses co-publishing. Jadi biasanya kami penerjemah yang kami pilih ini sesuai dengan bidang bukunya. Misalnya buku sosial dan kemanusiaan. Nah, kami biasanya mencari penerjemah yang memang punya latar belakang yang serupa. Jadi bisa menghasilkan terjemahan yang bagus ya. Karena sempat beberapa kali itu saya kirimkan hasil terjemahannya ke Springer dan memang bahasa itu masih menjadi poin yang patut diperhatikan ya. Jadi kadang-kadang secara konten itu bagus, tapi karena penerjemahannya kualitasnya kurang bagus, jadi itu akan mempengaruhi hasil penelaahan di Springer nanti. Itu mudah-mudahan sudah menjawab pertanyaannya. I think one more question before we go to the second session of presentation. It's for Mr. Rames from Miss Yunita. I want to ask, very few journal on mathematics education published on Springer Link. Is there any, can you recommend some journal in Springer that is in the field of mathematics education? Because it was difficult for me find a mathematics education research journal at Springer Link.
Okay. So mathematics is not my subject area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's number one. Number two, I can refer you to my colleagues who come from the journal program covering these journals in mathematics. So probably if you drop me an email, it's best that I connect you to them, and maybe you can also let them know that we should have more journals in this field. Then we can also look into that, give us some ideas as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So I cannot answer this question. I'm so sorry. It's very specific. So I will refer you to one of the journal working in Springer. I think that'll be much better.
Thank you very much, Ramesh. And I think we have like more than 90 questions here in the Q&A page. Yeah. Yeah, the participants are very enthusiastic. And some of the questions are already answered by the people in LIPI Press. So maybe during the second session of presentation, you can also directly answer the question. So can you see the question, the Q&A?
Yeah, I see some of them. Yeah.
Maybe you can like directly answer some of them also.
Okay. In the second part of the Q&A. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, then I think now our next agenda is for the second session for presentation. But before that, I'd like to inform you again that we have three complementary ebook from Springer that will be given to the 3 best social media posts. So please post about our event today and your Instagram, and don't forget to mention us, LIPI Press, and then we will see your post and we will select 3 best posts. Okay, and for our next session, we have 2 speakers, and each speaker will deliver their presentation for about 20 minutes. The first one is from Ms. Atika Nur Alami, and the second one is from Ms. Sarah. And as I have mentioned before, for Ms. Sarah's session, we will have a pre-recorded presentation. Okay, Ibu Atika. Oke. Selamat siang, Ibu.
Ya, siap.
Apa kabar, Bu?
Baik, alhamdulillah. Bisa mendengar suara saya?
Bisa.
Oke.
Jelas.
Oke.
Baik, untuk presentasinya nanti akan kami bantu menampilkan, Ibu. Sudah kami siapkan. Oke.
Baik.
So, akan And before we go to our next speaker, I'd like to introduce Ibu Atika to you. So Ibu Atika Nur Alami is the researcher at the Research Center for Politics, the Indonesian Institute of Sciences. Her main interest is in Indonesian foreign policy issues and reinforces her interest on gender and labor migration. Currently, she is a PhD candidate at National University of Singapore. And Ibu Atika is one of the authors of the LIPI Springer co-published book entitled Foreign Policy and Energy Security Issues in Indonesia. And for her sessions, she will share her experiences and her challenge and benefit that she gained from publishing book through LIPI Springer co-publishing agreement. She will also share her perspective as an author on the strategy to publish book in global publishing houses. Ibu Atika, you have 20 minutes to present your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Novi, as the moderator, and also all the speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Atika Nur Alami, a researcher at the Research Center for Politics, the Indonesian Institute of Sciences, LIPI. It's my pleasure actually and an honor to participate in this publishing forum. And I think we already heard very insightful presentation from previous speaker, and Ms. Alex and Ms. Rames, I think have explained comprehensively on how the Springer's publishing policy and shared to us what criteria for a manuscript could be published by Springer, which I think indeed very valuable information, not only in terms of public publishing process, but also how to write a good book that could catch readers and market's attention. And now I think my part actually to share my actual experiences as an editor for the book titled Foreign Policy and Energy Security Issues in Indonesia. And I think some parts of my presentation have been touched very nicely by Ms. Alex and Mr. Rames in their presentations. Okay, and for today's presentation, I will talk not only about my experiences as the editor of the book, but also challenges, benefits throughout the publishing process, as well as the strategy for publishing in a global publisher. Next slide, please. Okay, I will review just a little bit. This book was a product of a research in 2011 with my team at the Research Center for Politics, the Indonesian Institute of Sciences. It was then published by LIPI Press in 2014 and republished in 2017 under LIPI Springer co-publishing scheme. And how actually we navigate the publishing process, I will share with you. Once we got notice that our book was chosen as as one of the books that would co-publish with Springer, then we submitted a book proposal form to Springer. I think we already heard about book proposal before, and the form actually consists of three main parts: the author informations, book information, and content and market informations. After we submitted the book proposal form, Springer required us to sign the publishing agreement. During the signing process, we could review actually the document first, I mean the published agreement documents, and gave our sign. All authors must give their signs electronically. Okay, and after the agreement was completely signed, we proceed to peer review process. At that time, we received two reviewers who gave their critical and constructive comments regarding the book manuscript. And to accommodate the comments, our research team had like several meetings to discuss how we address the comments. We then made some corrections on manuscript based on the comments of the reviewers through online correction system. I think it's quite good. I mean, Springer developed like this kind of system. The system actually allow us to incorporate our corrections on the manuscript. The system also made it easier for us, for each of us, the author, to revise chapters individually and discuss with our team. And once we submit the online, the correction online, the manuscript then was sent to production. And before that, a Springer team required us to choose one of the book cover designs. So we decided this kind of, I mean, the red and purple color for the cover design. Then in May 2017, or maybe about 1 year since the beginning of the publishing process, we were sent an email, a nice email by Springer, which informed that our book has been published and it has been available online. And each author get one hard copy of the book, like this. Okay, I got one book, one copy of the book. Okay, Springer also offer personal free each book for each of us. I think that's all the publishing process. We can discuss in detail in the Q&A sessions. Next slide, please. Okay, although the publishing process indeed was challenging, took a long time, but I think this experience made us learn how the book get published. One of the challenges I think relates to book proposal. As I mentioned earlier that we need to submit the book proposal form. One of the sections in the forms is about content and market information. To me personally, this section really challenged us to think deeply and critically about the purpose of the book and who will benefit from the research. And it really, yeah, really make us what actually the book. I mean, the benefits of the book. Who will be the reader of the book? And also, we need to think about the unique selling points of the book. Why and how our book is different from other published books. I think all these questions are very important and fundamental even before we conducted a research. It really makes us think how valuable the book is and how we should think also from the perspective of the reader. And another challenge is about language issue. I think we already touched this issue before. As I share with you all that originally the book is in Bahasa Indonesia that has specific language structure, idioms, and expressions. And fortunately, LIPI Press helped us in translating the book into English. However, translating from Bahasa to academic English for such complex topics such as energy security is not easy. We recognize that some of the language structure are not correct completely. Then I think maybe in the future we should have like a translator who have knowledge on the particular subject, which is not easy also. But I think we should, I mean, in LIPI itself, we should produce more research-based books in English. Another challenge that we face during the publishing process is about book updates, specifically the up-to-date data and references. We already talked, previous speaker already touched this issue also. We acknowledge that the research was conducted in 2011 and get published in English in 2017. So during the 6-year period, situation and context of about foreign policy and energy security have changed, a lot of changes, and we did an updating on some data in the book. Next slide, please. Okay, despite the challenges we faced during the publishing process, there were some valuable benefits for us as a researcher and authors. The first benefit I think relates to peer review process. Sometimes scientists or researchers find the peer review process intimidating, Instead, we found that peer review process had benefits for us as authors. It is a positive process. I think revisions and improvement actually part of the publication process and help raise the quality of our manuscript. In our case, the reviewers had pointed out gaps in our manuscripts that require more explanation. The reviewers also, I think, help us to consider the importance of our manuscript to others in our field, which is very valuable, feedback for us. And publishing through Springer also provide opportunities for a wide and established readership, international readership, as our research could reach the greatest possible audience. Another important benefit from having our book co-published with Springer is Springer have an annual book performance that summarizes the number of chapter downloads. As we can see in the figure that I share in the slides, through the report, we know that we know not only the number of usage of our ebook every year, but also the total number of chapter downloads of our book. Since it's online publications, the number of downloads for our ebook has reached more than 1,000 downloads, and I think hope it increase. Okay, so we know how many people that feel the book bring benefits for the research also. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, in this section, I will share some strategies on how to publish book particularly in a global publisher, which is indeed, again, is not easy. We already hear, I mean, Miss Alex and Mr. Ramesh presentation, how the stages of publishing process, which is very windy road and maybe rocky roads also, I mean, not easy. And first, of course, we should prepare manuscript. The important thing is the manuscript must be in English, you know. And in writing the manuscript, I think we can be a single author for our own project. However, maybe some people find it difficult to publish individually. As an early career researcher, we can cultivate co-authors. We can work with our advisor or supervisor. We can also have co-author with a more senior academic. Some people also find like a seasoned co-authors with publication experiences. And I think by collaborating with other authors, the probability acceptance will likely more than double. I think hopefully our paper could be accepted. And also many academics, I think, also use conferences as an opportunity to share their research with colleagues and as a tool to receive feedback on their work. Conferences are also used to identify like chapters for edited books. So I think conference paper make a great starting place for preparing a book. We can also publish a journal article first, publish our original idea in an article, then maybe in a book. Once we have a proper manuscript, we must over the book to a publishing company such as Springer. And the other strategy, of course, we should select the right publisher, because lots of publisher, maybe predators, even predators publisher, and selecting the right publisher is one of the most important decision an author will make. The publisher, I think, should have an extensive marketing and a wide international exposure, and I believe Springer have these qualifications. The publishing process that I talk about in this context, in this presentation, basically is a traditional publishing. Currently, I think there has been a trend of like a self-publishing. It permits authors to bypass publishers and bookstore and sell directly to the public. I think you can, you can search, find information about self-publishing in Google, and I think it's all there. Nevertheless, I think for a first-time author, we should publish under the traditional publisher first. It is because we could have like a valuable experiences and learning process how a book comes to be. Also, there is still a lot of authority that comes with being a published author. So I think having a book deal with a traditional publisher can be a good way to build our reputations. Okay, next slide. To conclude, I think the key point to remember is publishing is a lot of hard work, and the work doesn't stop for either the publisher or the author. Once a book is published, that's only the beginning. Now the real work begins. I mean, the beginning is when your book is published. It's not the end of the story. Some even said that it takes a village of authors to raise an author, which indicate the importance of academic community in our writing process as an author. What we should do next, I think, are writing or use social media, like write a blog or Facebook post about our book, tweeting frequently. Maybe we have like a holding book signing events. So basically, it's promoting, and promoting. Okay. And so in general, I think my experience with Springer is positive due to its excellent service. It was such a pleasure and a learning process working with Springer during the submission and revision process of our manuscript. Yeah, I remember that we were assisted at every stage of the publishing process, and our queries were dealt promptly. However, we would like to see that maybe some feedback also for Springer. We would like to see that the final complete manuscript should be sent to us after we send the correction, and then is it better if Springer could send to us before the production process, so we can check again. The last or the final manuscript. We also think that maybe Springer should have like more marketing campaigns, such as like a new releases or author focus weeks or book trailers of the new published book. I think maybe already, Springer already have some of the events. But apart from that, I'm really impressed with the professionalism shown by the entire publication team. We receive like a timely feedback, very helpful peer reviewing, excellent communication with administrator, and again from publications. So we would like to express our great appreciations to the reviewers for the constructive advice shared with us for the revision of our manuscript. The suggestions were very, very helpful. We also thank LIPI Press for giving the opportunity to get published through Springer. Again, working with LIPI Press and Springer has been a great experience for my research team, and we're looking forward for future collaborations. Okay, I think that's all my presentation. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ibu Atika,
Yeah.
for your great presentation. Yeah,
Okay.
I think your book was the first one to publish in a scheme of co-publishing between LIPI and Springer. And from that first experience, LIPI Press has learned a lot of things to improve our service and the co-publishing scheme. And the first one you point out about the translation, we got a lot of insightful feedback from you and your team related to the translation service that we provided for your book. And so after your book, for our next co-publishing book, we always send the result of translation to the authors of the book to do the verification, to check, to make sure that some of the technical terms in your book is like correctly translated. Yeah, so we learn a lot from your feedback.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and also about the I think it's also true that an author need to see the final like final PDF before it's sent to be published.
Production.
I have and I have discussed it also with Alex. If you still remember, Alex. So for our upcoming publication, I asked Springer to send us the final product before it's published. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bu Atika. And I think that's all from the perspective of one of our published author. And now for our last topic, we have open access publishing at Springer Nature. So unfortunately, Miss Sarah cannot do a live presentation, but worry not, because we already have her pre-recorded presentation, and it's very interesting topic to discuss. I have seen the video last night and see what she talked about in her, I think, around 20 minutes video, and it's very interesting. So I'd like to tell you a bit about Miss Sarah. So Miss Sarah is the partnership manager for open access books at Springer Nature, where her responsibilities include partnership outreach and development of new open access collaboration with institutions and organizations worldwide. And her session offers an introduction to open access and the current policy landscape with a specific focus on open access books. It considers why open access matters, how it impacts on book publication, and provides guidance on how to approach a publisher with a new open access book idea, as well as to the publishing process, from proposal to publication. And it's quite interesting because that's what LIPI Press has been trying this year. So since the beginning of 2020, LIPI Press also have a policy of open access book. So we open our books publicly, and we publish it, because since the beginning of this year, we do not publish it in a printed version, but we only publish it in ebook version, and we usually publish that book in our website, and the public can read and also access and also download the books. And okay, without further ado, let's now listen to Miss Sarah's presentation. Hingga mungkin bisa ditampilkan videonya.
Hello to everyone. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Sarah Crowley-Vigneault. I am the Partnerships Manager for Open Access Books at Springer Nature. I'm very sorry that I'm not able to join you live today. As I'm based in the UK, the time zones do not allow, but I am very grateful for the invitation from the Indonesian Institute of Science to talk to you today. So I'm going to give you a brief presentation focused on open access, specifically on open access books. I will look at the definition of OA. We will look at the impact of OA on usage and citations for publications. We'll also look at how to submit a proposal to a publisher, which I'm sure is something that my colleagues will be covering as well. So I hope that you can see my PowerPoint slide. So this is the contents table for my short talk today. We'll go through a quick definition of open access. We'll look at why you might choose to publish OA. We'll also take a look at publishing at Springer Nature. And I will conclude my talk with a brief overview of some of the white papers that Springer Nature recently published. This is all fitting into the open access thought leadership work that Springer Nature carries out. So what is open access? As you probably know, open access essentially is free, unrestricted online access to the results of scholarly research. So open access works, be they journal articles or be they books, are free to share and to reuse. And this reuse is regulated most often by a Creative Commons license, CC BY. Works can be open access on the publisher's website. This is what we call gold OA. Or it can be somewhere else, and this is what we call green OA, and that's something I'll go into in the next slide. But perhaps most important is to think about why we started publishing open access. I think OA is something which enables smaller niche fields to develop and get attention. It allows researchers to better connect. It certainly enables and facilitates data mining. And also on a bigger scale, it enables researchers to shape policy, and encompassing all of the above, it improves access to research, which I think this year we have realized is very important. So gold OA versus green OA. You may have heard most of gold OA. This is the version of record. So it's the final journal article, it's the final book, publisher's typeset PDF or EPUB, which is available for free on the publisher's website. As soon as it publishes, it is available OA, and that is usually under a CC BY Creative Commons license. And Gold OA most often will involve a fee paid to the publisher. So this can be known under different terms. If it's a journal, then it'll be article processing charge, that's APC. And if we're talking books, it will be a book processing charge, or BPC. Then we have Green OA, or what we understand as self-archiving. So this is not necessarily the VOR, so the version of record. It could be an earlier version. It could, for instance, be the author's accepted manuscript. So it's freely available somewhere other than the publisher's website. So it could be in a subject repository, it could be on your own website. And Green OA most often will involve an embargo period. So you may ask the question, why publish open access? Why has open access become such an important topic and such a debate these days? Well, we see through our open access publications, both journals and books, that they get increased visibility and increased readership. We also note that they provide a better understanding of research outside of the academic community, so impacting, for instance, on policy. And in that way, research can progress faster outside of the academic community when there are no restrictions put on access. Importantly, authors retain copyright for their work when it publishes OA. This is sometimes misunderstood. So all authors retain copyright. And as we said earlier, open access enables you to better collaborate with your colleagues, with people across the world who may be working in similar fields. I think we see these days that people no longer work in narrower subject areas. Our work, be it in STEM areas, be it in the humanities and social sciences, is much more collaborative, much more cross-subject areas. And that can sometimes involve topics such as the Sustainable Development Goals, which cross all subject areas. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about open access in terms of how it affects usage, how it affects impact, I would refer you to a white paper that Springer published in 2017. In this paper, we note that our open access books have almost 2.5 times more citations than our non-OA books. They get 10 times more downloads and 10 times more online mentions. So these are not insignificant numbers. And in 2017, this was something that we were keen to look at. So then, open access at Springer Nature. You may know that Springer Nature was one of the very first publishers to pioneer open access. We published our very first book, I believe, in 2010, and our open access books program launched in 2011. We were absolutely delighted to cross our 1000th book threshold this year. I think it was in May 2020, we published our 1000th OA book. And we have achieved over 100 million chapter downloads since 2013. On the right of my slide, you can see some of our most highly downloaded books, be it European Citizenship After Brexit, which is very important, or Autonomous Driving from Springer, which is perhaps the most downloaded OA book that we have. If you are interested in looking more into this, I would refer you to our usage statistics page. If you are interested in looking at any of these links, please do get in touch with me. My email will be at the end of this presentation, and I'll be happy to forward it on to you. So at Springer Nature, all imprints and book types can publish open access. So you may know that Springer Nature covers imprints such as, of course, Springer, but also Palgrave Macmillan and A-Press. So all of these books can publish OA. And also all book types can publish OA, be they our shorter works under 150 pages, such as the Palgrave Pivots or Springer Briefs, or full-length monographs and edited collections, and also our major reference works, so much longer works can also publish open access. We also welcome proposals for open access series, so they can be fully open access, or they can be hybrid, which means that some of the books in them are not open access and some of them are. And everything that Springer Nature publishes open access, all of the ebook versions are also open access, so PDF, EPUB, and HTML. And finally, the BPC, book processing charge, as we discussed earlier, covers all of the costs. So this covers commissioning. So this is when you begin to have discussions with your editor about the book, and looking at the book proposal and the exchanges that you have then. It covers the development work that you will do with the editor and with the editorial assistant throughout the writing process of the book. It then covers production, so copy editing, proofreading, etc., dissemination, promotion of the book, marketing, online indexing and hosting, and most importantly, of course, the release of the book under a Creative Commons license. So you may ask me why choose open access at Springer Nature, and I'll be very happy to tell you. I think the most important thing, the thing that we talk about most, is the fact that all of our open access books, and this applies to the journals as well, undergo professional and rigorous peer review. So our open access books undergo exactly the same peer review process as our non-open access books. They also benefit from exactly the same editorial expertise in all subject areas as our non-open access books. Through Palgrave Macmillan, through Springer, through A-Press, we have editors specialized in a wide array of subject areas. And this is something which feeds in very successfully to our open access program. We've spoken about the Creative Commons license. Springer Nature favors the CC BY 4.0 license. So this is the industry gold standard. It is the most open of the licenses. So whilst we do enable other licenses if the author has preferences, this is the one that we go for. I mentioned earlier that we first published our first open access book nearly over a decade ago now. And as such, we have an experienced open access team in which I am privileged to sit to help you with any open access queries. We also have a specialized funding support service, which I'll talk about in a later slide, which can help you find funding for your book. And finally, also, we we have a number of open access books partnerships with libraries, with institutions, which enables them to co-sponsor or to sponsor open access books publishing with Springer Nature by authors who are affiliated to their institution or otherwise eligible. So if you do want to know more about OA at Springer Nature, there are some videos that you can explore on YouTube. Again, I'll be happy to send you these links. Why publish an OA book, and how does it work over OA book in 6 steps. So these are the 6 steps, which I won't go into too much detail because an open access book follows very closely the same publication process as a non-OA book. So as I mentioned, you would submit your OA book proposal. It would be vetted, it would be peer reviewed in the same way. You would sign then a contract, and the contract would reflect the fact that the book is open access and stipulate the appropriate book processing charge. After that, the process is identical to a non-open access book. You will complete your book, you will submit it to your editor, it will be handed over to production, it will be copy edited, proofread, and it will be published. And on publication, your book will publish open access CC BY 4.0. If you would like further details on this process, again, I would refer you to the link at the bottom left of the page, which I'm happy to send on. So a little earlier, I mentioned the open access funding support service that we offer our authors. So this is an email, in fact, which you can see down below, oafundingpolicy@springernature.com. This is open to anyone who would like to submit a book to Springer Nature, to any of the imprints, to help you find funds for your publication. So it can provide you with personalized information on what open access funds are available to you. It can help to direct you to the correct OA funding coordinator or relevant person at your institution. It can advise you on compliance with open access policies of funders and institutions. And also it can supply you with information that you may need to complete an open access funding application. These are sometimes quite lengthy, they can be taxing. So this team is here to help you with all of these different points. So if you are considering an open access publication and you're not sure about funding, do feel free to reach out. And now I would like to tell you just a little bit about some of the white papers that we released. This is looking at the different steps we've taken with open access and different aspects that we have looked at. So one open access white paper, which was very popular, published in 2019, so that was just last year. It was in fact the largest ever survey of book authors' attitudes to open access. So it looked at the reasons why authors had chosen open access and why, how successful they felt they had been, what they got in terms of impact from that choice to go OA. So I can refer you to the white paper itself, and also to Figshare if you would like to check out the data itself. Then one paper which was released this year in collaboration with CORD. CORD is the Collaborative Open Access Research and Development Group with whom we worked on this paper. This was a very interesting one, looking at trends in usage of Springer Nature OA books versus non-OA books in terms of geography. So we looked very closely at where readers of open access books were based. And we noted, and this is really putting it in a nutshell, we noticed that there was a much higher diversity of geographical usage, especially in lower and lower middle income countries. So we found that OA books are being picked up, read a lot more in countries in Latin America, in Africa, in some regions of Asia. So this was, I think, very informative and a very important part of why we choose to publish OA, and a very strong argument in favor of OA for any researcher, for any author. So I can refer you to the landing page, to the paper, and also you may wish to find out a little bit more about CORD. And finally, I would like to refer you to a very recent toolkit which was just made available. So this essentially is the OAPEN OA Books Toolkit, which is a new resource to help authors better understand how open access works for books. So this was a toolkit that we developed with OAPEN through a number of workshops with academics. So this happened over a number of months. And the toolkit itself was written by an international editorial advisory board of high-level academics. So I would refer you to the toolkit. I think for anyone who's interested in open access books, it's a must go to tool. But in essence, it provides support and resources across the research lifecycle. So one thing that we note for open access is that when authors come to us and express an interest in publishing open access, they are very far ahead in the life cycle of their research. At that time, it may be too late for them to put aside any funding for OA, and it becomes a lot more difficult to secure the money that is required to go OA. So what the toolkit does is allows authors, researchers to take OA into account right at the beginning of the research lifecycle. So it looks at planning and funding. It looks at how to conduct your research with open access in mind. It will argue publishing options. So across the board, a very independent review of publishing options. It provides advice on how to write and submit your manuscript. It will advise also on how peer review works, on how book contracts and licenses work for open access, and then of course, publication, dissemination, and reuse. So this is one of the most forward-looking toolkits available at the moment, and I would very much recommend it. At this stage, it just remains for me to say thank you very much for listening. I would be very happy to take any questions that you might have by email. You can contact me at sarah.crowleyvigneault@springnature.com. We also have a wider open access books email, oabooks@springnature.com. I will be happy to forward this presentation on to anyone who is interested. And in the meantime, I wish you a very good session, and thank you again for your time. Thank you.
Baik, ini presentasi terkait dengan open access. Dan saya kira ini suatu topik yang sangat menarik untuk dibahas ya. Karena seperti yang telah saya sampaikan sebelumnya, jadi di LIPI Press mulai tahun ini kami juga membuka akses buku kami, jadi terbitan-terbitan kami buka untuk umum dan publik bisa mengakses serta membaca dan bahkan mengunduh terbitan-terbitan kami melalui website. Setelah melakukan open access ini, tadi ada beberapa yang disampaikan dalam presentasi Sarah, karena ada banyak ketakutan ya. Kalau misalnya buku ini dibuat dalam bentuk open access, nanti seperti apa? Kalau datanya diambil orang seperti apa? Gitu. Tapi ternyata dari penjelasan yang disampaikan oleh Sarah tadi, ada banyak sekali keuntungan dari melakukan penerbitan secara open access. Dan di LIPI Press, so here in LIPI Press, we have implemented a publishing system, open monograph press. It's kind of similar to what we have done for the journal publishing, open journal access. And then dengan menggunakan OMP ini, jadi kami mulai menggunakan OMP sejak bulan Januari sampai ini masih terus menggunakan, dan ada kenaikan signifikan yang telah kami dapatkan ya dari terbitan-terbitan kami itu sejak menggunakan OMP. Jadi ini ada beberapa data yang saya kumpulkan dari tim OMP di LIPI Press itu. Kami telah melakukan open access terhadap 274.000 terbitan kami. Jadi kami sudah membuka akses buku dan semua masyarakat bisa membaca dan juga mengakses full e-booknya. Kemudian dengan adanya OMP ini, yang dengan open access ini, memudahkan terbitan-terbitan kami untuk terindeks, baik di Google Scholar maupun di indekser yang lain. Jadi dari data kami, selama 7 bulan penggunaan OMP ini ya, ada 71 judul buku yang telah terindeks di Google Scholar. Kemudian juga memudahkan bagi penulis agar tulisan-tulisannya itu makin mudah untuk disitasi. Seperti itu. Jadi perbandingan antara awal dulu sebelum kami menggunakan OMP dengan yang setelah penggunaan OMP itu, awalnya kami terindeks di Google Scholar itu hanya 24. Kemudian setelah penggunaan OMP naik drastis menjadi 71 indeks. Dan ini yang terus kami perbaiki sistem OMP ini. Kami terus melakukan perbaikan sistemnya agar bisa memfasilitasi semua penulis agar bukunya lebih mudah untuk tersitasi dan juga terindeks. Okay, and now we will go for the second session of Q&A, and we already have still so many questions here from the participants. I'll try to select some of them. So, it's still the question for Mr. Rames from Mr. Rahmat. How long does it take in average for the journal publication process for an open access paper in Springer?
For open access paper.
Yeah, for the journal.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter whether the journal is subscription-based or open access. So I think the review time should be the same. Because nowadays, some journals, they have what you call the online first version. So it depends on the journal. So some journals, if they have the online first model, which is great because the article, as soon as it goes through the review process and as soon as it's been accepted, they can put out the author's version out there first. And when it goes through the production process and it's done, then you have the online version. So the online version for that article, there will be a DOI assigned to that article. So readers can already cite that article. So because the problem with journals sometimes is that you have to build the issues. That means in every year there's a volume, and then you have to build the issues as well. And sometimes there is a backlog of articles to be fitted into an issue. So sometimes you have to wait for your for maybe 6 months. It's already been accepted, it's ready, but because of the issue building, sometimes there's a backlog of 6 months to 1 year. So if you choose a journal which has online first option, which is great, as soon as it's been accepted, it will be available with a DOI, and then eventually it will be part of a certain issue. Yeah. So it's important to understand the need, because I know there are some who have the time constraint in terms of a student who needs to finish his PhD, and they have to publish maybe 3 or 4 articles, and they need to also understand how fast is the journal able to work. Yeah, in that sense. Yeah. So in my opinion, I think a turnaround time of about 3 months is respectable from the time of submission to the final version of the article. Yeah. I know there are some journals can do it even a shorter time, and there are some journals that can take up to 1 year. So you have to be careful. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your explanation. And for next question, it's for Ibu Prapti from Pak Andi Cahyono. Apakah buku yang diterbitkan harus mengutamakan mengandung kearifan atau pengetahuan lokal masyarakat dalam berbagai aspeknya untuk program LIPI ini, misalnya budaya, hubungan masyarakat, mitigasi bencana, penggunaan sumber daya, karakter masyarakat, dan sebagainya. Dan apakah ada jadwal tertentu untuk penerimaan naskah atau terbuka seterusnya. Kemudian apabila diterima LIPI Press dan Springer, tertarik dialih bahasakan, apakah ada dukungan untuk alih bahasa tersebut? Mungkin beberapa pertanyaan sudah terjawab sebenarnya ya, tapi mungkin bisa disampaikan kembali oleh Ibu Prakti. Silakan.
Sudah saya jawab sepertinya tadi di Q&A ya, cuma mungkin bisa diulang kembali ya.
Ya, karena ada pertanyaan serupa dari beberapa peserta,
Ya.
jadi mungkin agar peserta terinformasi.
Ya, baik. Jadi untuk program akuisisi yang kami terima, seperti tadi yang disampaikan pada saat presentasi, memang yang mengandung informasi atau materi terkait ilmu pengetahuan dan kearifan lokal. Dan itu juga bisa yang terkait dengan aspek-aspek di dalamnya. Kemudian untuk timing menyerahkan ke kami, memang kami itu tahun ini bisa membuka 2 gelombang, mungkin tahun depan juga seperti itu. Tapi kalau memang naskah Bapak sudah siap, mungkin bisa dikirimkan ke kami untuk diantrikan atau untuk diperiksa dulu sebelum memang pembukaan untuk gelombang 1 2021 dimulai. Terkait alih bahasa atau terjemahan, seperti yang tadi saya sampaikan bahwa anggaran untuk penerjemahan itu kami serahkan ke penulis atau mungkin kalau di LIPI di satuan kerjanya masing-masing, karena kami tidak ada anggaran terkait terjemahan. Jadi paling yang kami bisa lakukan hanya merekomendasikan penerjemah yang mungkin bisa membantu menerjemahkan naskah Bapak. Seperti itu Mbak Novi.
Baik, terima kasih Ibu Prapti. Mungkin karena keterbatasan waktu, kita 1 atau 2 pertanyaan lagi ya. Ini, apa saja keuntungan selain insentif yang mungkin ditawarkan dari LIPI Press untuk penulis jika naskah sudah sesuai standar LIPI Press untuk diterbitkan? Ini terkait dengan program akuisisi tadi. Jadi keuntungan selain insentif itu apa lagi sih? Bagi penulis?
Ya mungkin bisa kita ajukan untuk diterbitkan oleh Springer ya, terbit secara global. Seperti yang mungkin Mbak Atikah ya, keuntungan yang diperoleh sebagai autor. Selain mungkin kalau dulu mungkin zaman Mbak Atikah belum ada insentif seperti ini ya, terkait akuisisi. Nah untuk sekarang mungkin selain itu kita bisa mengusulkan atau merekomendasikan judul Bapak atau Ibu ini ke Springer untuk diterbitkan melalui co-publishing LIPI Springer. Itu Mbak Novi.
Baik, terima kasih Ibu Prakti. Mungkin pertanyaan 1 lagi. Mungkin untuk Alex. Does the LIPI Springer Publishing collaboration also publish books in the form of book chapter?
Yes, well, we publish edited volumes. So yes, this is actually a common mistake, I think, especially that younger scholars make, saying, I want to publish a book chapter, but it's a kind of a chicken and an egg situation, you know, which came first. First, you need the concept for the edited volume, and in some cases in book series, if there's a particular, say, well, this is outside of the co-publishing agreement, but ordinarily, if a scholar is interested in submitting or to a particular book series, sometimes series will have call for chapters on their book pages. You'll see on Springer link, springer.com, on the series page, there's a tab there that sometimes says call for proposals or call for chapters. So if there is an editor that is looking for submissions, that might be advertised on the series webpage. However, for the most part, we expect that once the proposal comes in, the entire book as an edited volume, the proposal has been submitted for that volume and not for a chapter per se. You know, certainly I think if someone's interested in developing a chapter into, say, a Springer brief, which is the shorter book type that I mentioned, maybe that's something that could be explored, because that's only between 20,000 to 50,000 words. So yeah, I do think there's scope, if you have a shorter work, to possibly explore publishing it as a brief. But ordinarily, like I said, we wouldn't accept just a book chapter in isolation that would be better suited to being published perhaps as a journal paper.
I think what she means is a book, edited volume, I think. Because there's a misconception here, not a book chapter, but edited volumes.
Edited volumes, absolutely. We're very interested in edited volume proposals.
Okay, I think because we are running out of time, I think that's all for this second session of question and answer. And we got a lot of requests from the participant regarding your presentation materials. Is it okay to share with the participants?
I'm fine with that from my side, the PDF, yeah. Ramesh?
And I have, okay.
It's okay.
Okay, then, okay, thank you. Then we will share your presentation material to all the participants. And
to add to that, Novi, if I may, again, if anyone has any specific questions, please, my email address is at the in the book proposal form that's included in the material, and it's also on the last slide. So if you would like to ask a specific question, please feel free to drop me and Ramesh and Sarah as well an email.
Sure. Okay, and you have prepared a separate PDF, including the key things that are presented in your presentation. I think it's going to be beneficial for the participants, and we will include that PDF also when we share material for all the participants. And I think we have covered not all the questions, but because we are running out of time, so nanti kalau ada Bapak Ibu yang masih ada pertanyaan terkait dengan penerbitan buku di LIPI Press atau penerbitan buku dalam skema co-publishing antara LIPI dan Springer, bisa menghubungi kami di email. Kemudian juga bisa menghubungi melalui email, misalnya ada pertanyaan khusus yang mau disampaikan kepada salah satu presenter hari ini, bisa juga disampaikan melalui email. Kemudian untuk materi tadi akan kami bagikan kepada seluruh peserta ya, untuk materinya. Kemudian tautan umpan balik juga sudah kami bagikan kepada Bapak Ibu di kolom chat. Silahkan untuk mengisi umpan balik tersebut, karena itu akan menjadi dasar kami dalam pembuatan sertifikat yang akan kami kirimkan ke email Bapak Ibu. Kemudian we already prepared 10 free books for 10 best questions, but I think because we got a lot of questions, I think we will choose the 10 best questions after this, and I will contact each of the 10 people separately after this event. And I'd like to thank all the participants here and also the speaker, especially. Thank you for Alex. Thank you for Mr. Ramesh. Thank you for Ibu Atika. And thank you for Ibu Prapti for your kind help and also your sharing your experience and also your knowledge to us here. It has been a very fruitful discussion today. And I think that's all for this session, and I will give it back to Ms. Sarwenda for the next agenda. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam, Mbak Novi, and all the panelists. Thank you very much for the very dynamic and fruitful session on LIPI Springer Publishing Forum 2020. Dan Ibu dan Bapak, sebagaimana telah kami sampaikan di awal bahwa 3 followers dengan postingan terbaik akan mendapatkan gift menarik dari LIPI Press, maka berikut kami sampaikan 3 nama pemenang dengan akun. Yang pertama, @lordbagas88, yang kedua, @agungdl1, yang ketiga, arini_zakia. Selamat kepada para pemenang, dan kepada para pemenang kami mohon agar dapat membagi identitas serta alamat pengiriman melalui DM ke IG LIPI Press. Baik, Ibu dan Bapak, agenda berikutnya adalah penutupan. Maka izinkanlah saya mewakili panitia menutup acara pada hari ini dengan ucapan Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of the program. We would like to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation to our distinguished presenters, panelists, and to all of you participants of the LIPI Springer Publishing Forum 2020. Finally, the organizing committee of this event deliver apology for any inconvenience, and we hope to meet you again in the next agenda. Sebelum mengakhiri acara, izinkanlah saya untuk menyampaikan sebuah pantun. Pergi ke pantai, nyasar ke gua. Saat di jalan, ketemu kucing Persia. Terima kasih atas partisipasi Anda semua. Salam hangat dari LIPI untuk seluruh masyarakat Indonesia. Have a great day and good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much, everybody.
Terima kasih, Bu Atika.
Terima kasih, Bu Atika.
Thank you so much, all of you, the participants, and also the panelists. See you on the next agenda.
Terima kasih teman-teman semua.
Ya, sudah bisa live ya?
Bisa, silakan Ibu.
Terima kasih Bu Atika.
Bu Atika, terima kasih. Miss Rames. Mr. Rames.
Sip.
Alhamdulillah. Selamat.
Terima kasih teman-teman atas bantuan.
Keren.